Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is the Big Picture, a conversation show about whatever you want to know. We're opening up the mailbag today and taking your questions. Bobby Wagner is here to read them. Later in this episode, Amanda and I will be joined by our pal, Alex Ross Perry, to talk about his hilarious, ingenious new movie, Pavements. It's a biopic, jukebox musical, documentary, metatextual deconstruction of the 90s indie rock slacker icons Pavement.
And also the idea of making a movie about a band.
Absolutely. There has really never been a movie like this before. It is incredibly strange and incredibly interesting. Also, Alex is like a 9, 10, 11, 12-time champion of this show. He's been here many, many times. You have never interviewed him with me before. Did you enjoy that experience?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, because, with him, I was just chatting.
He's a pal.
He's a pal. And I just got to ask what I wanted to ask about instead of having to be like, so when you sat down, I guess I did ask a version of that.
You did ask a couple of
it was mostly like,
questions.
what's wrong with you? In a nice way. Why is your brain like this?
This was, I think, a 4 or 5 year odyssey for him to get this movie on screen. We hosted a screening on, was it Thursday night at Vidiot's, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And Alex is the best, so stick around for that convo. First, we need to talk about the fact that there's really no news other than the Cannes Film Festival starts today.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I'm making peace with my life at home,
You're
I'm
making peace with your life at home.
My life at home. I'm not there. I'm here. I had a great weekend. And that's, I need to go through life. I think that I just need to accept what I have instead of being angry about what I don't, which is a first-class ticket to Cannes.
You always make it sound like you're a terribly poor 19th century Polish farmer. I return back to the land and things are difficult.
I'm not really.
I cannot continue in this life. But you're a podcaster, you know, when you talk about movies.
Yeah,
you didn't get to go to the Quasset this year, which is too bad.
Next year?
We'll see. We'll see. How will we cover Cannes from here?
I guess I'll just angrily send you links while you're golfing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so it won't be that different from most times here in Los Angeles. That's it. You want to go to the mailbag?
I do.
Bobby Wagner, producer of the Press Box. What's up, man?
Yeah.
That's correct. I'm having a fun time talking about journalism, the horse, and the occupation.
Great blogging episode. I have a mailbag question to start this off, actually. My mailbag is from Amanda on YouTube, and it's for Bobby Wagner. And it's, Bob, how was your trip to London?
Oh, my trip to London was great. I got to actually see a couple films. I went to Prince Charles and I went to BFI, which was incredible.
What'd you see?
I realized I never had seen a movie in a foreign country at all. Even in all my travel, I had never actually gone to the movie theater, which is crazy to me because, I don't know, it just seems like something I would have done. But, you're too busy worried about seeing churches and cathedrals, which is what you usually do in Europe. So that's true.
There's only one cathedral.
This is the best part of the Venice Film Festival is you just kind of look at the church from the outside and then you just go see cool movies,
Right, which is a preferable thing anyway.
What movies did you see?
I saw Memories of Murder at BFI.
Nice. At South Bank?
Yeah, right down the river.
That's a very cool place.
And then I saw Parallax View at Prince Charles.
Oh, that's really fun.
Amazing.
Yeah. What was the vibe? What was the demo in the Prince Charles?
The demo was actually, so I was noticing this when I was seeing movies there, but it was a lot more diversity of age, a lot older people coming to see it. Whereas in New York, it's all just a bunch of and I can say this because I am an annoying 29-year-old, a bunch of annoying 29-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yo, I'm here to see this. I'm so fired up. Yeah. A lot of older folks, which was cool. A genuine round of applause when the name Gordon Willis came up. In the
Prince
opening
Charles
credits,
is the best,
too.
Man. I love it so much.
We have. To
it was on a film print. It was kind of a rough one, and I was like, "This is a good vibe."
Okay, well, we've sourced some questions from listeners. The questions are getting more and more ornate and difficult.
That's true.
They're sort of if you were a man that was born in 1972 and you had a cat, but you were a filmmaker, what film would you put your cat in? And I'm like, sir, it's Monday at 9 a.m. Come on.
I think some of it's email.
It's email,
and it's you're confronted with the blank page and you're like, I got to fill it. And I do appreciate that people want to fill it. But, we had a robust conversation before we hit record about charging my various facial devices, and there is room for that. And there is room for one sentence questions along with these. Did you notice that I deleted a couple?
I deleted a couple as
Okay,
well.
good. Yeah. Not because they were bad questions, just because we didn't have the time. We did a lot of homework for Paul Newman, and
That's a good
we had
point.
to catch up
Yeah.
with the rest of our
Just
life.
in terms of your facial devices,
Yeah.
as you were talking, I was picturing you like the precog from Minority Report, like laying in a bath backwards, but you've got like all these nodules attached to your head. Is that what it's like?
Well, it's not that different, except I don't do it in the bath because of, like electricity and not wanting to shock myself.
see.
I do
Okay.
actually, I often do it while on my computer, so I was prepping this morning while wearing my LED mask.
So you need to do a get ready video for the big picture Instagram feed, and you need to post that immediately while you're wearing whatever masks
Do you know what they look like? Have you seen pictures of them?
Honestly, no, and I don't want to see them, and I don't want to see you in them.
It's very common.
Okay.
Like Jack and Bobby at least are open to the wider world. They knew what I was talking about. Bobby has some issues charging his Theragun, so he sees my difficulty, right?
This is true. Anytime I'm going to use them, like, I need the Theragun real bad right now. Nope, there it is. It's dead. And it only has one specific charger. So it's not like I can just throw it on a random phone charger or whatever.
And also then certain devices can't do the high speed charger, the Zip Halo. So you got to find then a different outlet. But
that's me, but for my daughter's Yoto at night when it runs out of battery. And I'm like, no!
Our Yoto has not been charged in 3 months.
The Yoto is right behind iPhone in most essential device in my home. All right. By a significant margin. More than my television. I need that Yoto every night.
We were having some real issues with the karaoke mic not being charged, which was purposeful on certain members of our household. And then Knox,
Zach loves to sing.
But Knox also just kept finding random chargers and then trying to plug them in with
smart.
the karaoke. None of them matching. I know. Wow. I was impressed, and I was also once again, childproofing is impossible, because where did you get this cord? It's another charging cord that I haven't been able to find for 5 years.
Well, stop buying so many masks to wear at night and you won't be able to find those cords.
No, I think the problem that we have here is that we need to decide as a society, we need to come together. Maybe the new American Pope can make a ruling on this. I don't care who does it. We need to decide whether we're a USB society or a USB-C society. I'm so sick of not having the right USB cable when the U in USB stands for
Bobby.
universal.
We're trending C right now, clearly, it was 10 years of USB, and we can't get over what we once had. So in this transition, you just need to have both on hand at all times. You need to have backup cords.
That's very stressful.
I agree. I'm not happy about it. I think Bobby is right.
We pass the buck on to the consumer, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, the lightning cable revolution is literally just a financial ploy to get more money from you to upgrade your devices. So this is the hell that we live in.
Mm-hmm. No questions about chargers or cords.
Well, let's see. We don't know. There may have been a few added at the end. Jack may have slipped a few in there. Bobby, what's the first question?
The first question comes from someone named Tracy. Not sure who wrote this one in. Can you shed some light on the third chair? While I love all the folks who regularly guest on the show, it's clear no one is better suited for the job than Tracy Letts. He knows his stuff. He does the work. He's outrageously funny, and he brings in the important Born in 65 demo. Chris Ryan is great, of course, but he's stretched so thin with his other ringer duties that he's dead inside. Also, if Tracy had the title of third chair, maybe you could get Carrie Coon to come on the show. And she is hotter than a hen in a wool blanket. Signed, enthusiastic listener.
Well, I wonder who sent that.
I think these are great ideas. Really, really strong points. Chris is not dead inside, but otherwise, I think that Tracy brings a lot to the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's welcome anytime. Mm-hmm. He does, I think, have a homework list of films that he needs to see before he comes on the show.
Agreed.
First among them, Ghost. So, Tracy Letts, if you're listening, I know it's on your list.
Yep.
I'm waiting. I can't wait for your review. And obviously, Carrie Coon is welcome absolutely anytime. A legend in the game.
Obviously, Carrie is welcome. I need Tracy to watch Avengers Endgame, and then maybe we'll talk. That's for top priority right now. Tracy's wonderful. He needs to leave New York and move back to Los Angeles.
There we
go. As soon as he does, he's welcome anytime. Okay. Bring his entire family.
Sure.
They can afford it.
Yeah.
Carrie, she's the biggest star on TV right now. Come on. Tracy, what are you waiting for? Your third career awaits you. Playwright, character actor.
Right.
Third chair.
There we go.
What's next?
No, Tracy, don't leave New York, man. What an East Coast soul on that man. He should not go back to LA.
I don't know. California, I like it. I'm pro.
I like it too, but it was pointed out to me again this weekend that I'm raising 2 native Californians, and that is weird. I do need to keep my East Coast soul, and so if maybe we need our third chair
What's it
to
worth?
be connected.
What's it really worth?
I don't. Do you really feel Californian? Like, are you that relaxed? No.
That's not what California is. That's a fallacy.
What is it to
Everyone
you?
in California is uptight too. It's just in a different way.
Yeah, but in a way I find pretty annoying.
I think one is about anger. Like East Coast is anger and West Coast is anxiety. That's my differentiation.
As someone who is fluent in both, I would say that
Agreed on that.
I had plenty of East Coast anxiety. There's something aggressive versus passive aggressive of the two. And if we're gonna do it, let's say it. Let's get it out there.
All right. I understand. Can I tell you something that happened to me when I was driving to work today? I was getting on the 5 and I was getting ready to on the turn on, and there were 2 cars in front of me stopped, and the guy who's 2 cars in front got out of his car and he walked over to the guy whose car was directly in front of me and he started screaming in his face. Clearly something had just happened, some sort of altercation on the road. And he pulled the guy's car open and was demanding that he get out so they fight in the street. And it was one of the most New York things I've ever seen happen in California.
That's really...
And the guy would not get out of his car. He wouldn't take his seatbelt off. He was terrified. And then the guy
I do think that is the right decision.
Oh, of course. I would have done the same thing. I'm not fighting a guy in the street at 9 a.m. But then the guy, so he closed the door on the guy and then he spit, not at him or in the car, but just on the ground in front of him as if to say, I reject thee, which I thought was a very dramatic kind of Shakespearean moment. Got back in his car, drove off, then I got to work.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of New York still inside of California. Sure, I was fine.
There are a lot of transplants.
I was getting ready to turn around, though. I was like, I don't know if I want to be stuck behind these guys. I'll find another on-ramp to the 5.
Yeah.
Anywho, a lot of movies so far.
Real world star moment for you. You could have videotaped that and gone viral.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you just tweeted that no context? You just tweeted a video of this fight happening, no context.
Mid-shouting, the guy who had gotten out of his car picked up his head and looked me right in the eye as if to say, don't take out your phone. And I didn't.
That's incredible. Okay, next question comes from Kadir. Is there any underrated indie director you would wish to get the Sean Baker treatment in this year's Oscars? And then Kadir goes on to say, personally, I would love to see the universe where Kelly Reichardt wins a bunch of Oscars.
I mean, me too.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. We said that the mastermind, her new film, is playing at Cannes this year. Some people think it could be an Academy Award contender. 10 years ago, I was like, directors like Kelly Reichardt never compete at the Oscars, and everything's changed so much. It could happen. I'm not ruling it out. We both listed a bunch of people here. I mean, there's a ton of people that I think exist in this orbit, some of whom are indie, some of whom are just kind of smaller studio filmmakers, some of whom have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, some of whom have only been around for a short time. But James Gray's the first person that popped into my head, in part because there was some casting news on his new movie, Paper Tiger. Did you see this?
Anne and Jeremy Strong out.
Yes.
Miles Teller and
Scarlett Johansson in. So Miles Teller and Adam Driver will play brothers in this movie. And I think, I don't know if it's a love triangle or not with Scarlett Johansson, but Anne Hathaway is gone. Jeremy Strong is gone after his wonderful work in Armageddon Time with James. Gray to me is like the epitome of this, where it's like everybody agrees he's great. He's never really had that like explosive, wow, he did it moment where everyone recognizes
in the United States,
it.
anyway.
In the US, yes. In France, he's won 15,000 Césars. I wrote down Boots Riley, who has a new movie coming out with Demi Moore, I think later this year, called I Love Boosters. He's only made one film and a TV series, but kind of feels like he's in a similar vein. And Lynn Ramsey has a new movie at Cannes. I know we both love Mike Mills.
We do.
Mike Mills would be, he's in that Sean Baker, Kelly Reichardt zone of 8 or 9 independent features, most critically acclaimed, not a huge box office driver, but somebody, and it's been a while since he's made a movie. When was Come On, Come On? Like 4 or 5 years ago.
2021.
Yeah.
Because it was, because I was pregnant with Knox and I remember it. And it just absolutely took me out.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I thought very underrated, maybe due to COVID in part, or underseen. David Lowery, he also has another movie coming out later this year. Same zone with Anne Hathaway, Mother Mary. Carla Simone popped in my head. I think she also has a movie at Cannes. I might have just been looking at the Cannes schedule as I did this, but she had Alcaraz a few years ago, summer of 1993. Andrew Hay, who had All of Us Strangers, who we thought could be
another
Oscar
one
contender.
where we just, there's another question where I should write All of Us Strangers down.
Okay. Lucretia Martel, I thought of Sean Durkin, Kelly Freeman Craig, who did Edge of 17, and Are You There, Margaret? Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret? Jeremy Saulnier just had a huge hit with Rebel Ridge, but hasn't been an Oscar guy. The Safdies.
Sure.
Josh and Benny both have movies this year.
Yeah.
Never been Oscar nominated. And you wrote Bomback.
I mean,
I thought about it. I mean, he's been nominated for 3 screenplay Oscars and 1 Best Picture, but
it's
he
not.
never really was competing,
Yeah,
right?
never in the. It's like always a bridesmaid
Yeah,
situation,
yeah.
and he's one of our favorite working filmmakers.
So Jay Kelly,
Yeah, I'm ready.
coming out this fall,
November.
It's Clooney
Mm-hmm.
and
Sandman.
Adam Sandler. I was texting with Bill and Van and Chris this weekend, and we were texting, and Craig too. We were texting about whether or not Michael B. Jordan could compete in Best Actor this year, and what the odds are for him. And we were like, yeah, it's like huge movie, acclaimed, like this box office hold that it has going on is crazy.
Right.
It's going to cross $300 million more than likely, maybe even more than that. It's getting into like bigger than Inception mode, which is really quite something. And then I looked at some of the projections for Best Actor.
Okay.
And it's insanely competitive. Let me see if I can pull this document up. This is just like a speculation.
Yeah.
But Timothée Chalamet, Marty Supreme,
Right.
Jeremy Allen White in Deliver Me From Nowhere,
Of course.
the Springsteen movie.
Sure.
Leo in One Battle After Another.
Yes.
Paul Mescal in The History of Sound.
Okay.
Dwayne Johnson in The Smashing Machine.
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons in Begonia. Talked to
Okay.
somebody who saw that recently who said he's a lock.
Okay. Well.
George
see.
Clooney and Jay Kelly, per our conversation.
Okay.
Colin Farrell in The Ballad of a Small Player, new Edward Berger movie from Netflix. Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, and Denzel for Highest to
I was
Lowest.
like, where's Denzel? Yeah.
That's a fucking stacked ass category. And
It
then,
is.
of course, there's 1 or 2 people who we don't even know about who will slide in. And it's a really interesting balance of like old and new.
Mm-hmm.
You got your Leos and your Denzels and your Clooneys, and you also got your Plemonses and your Chalamets and your Michael B's. So could be a really exciting Best Actor race this year.
I'm excited.
You think Bomback, you think he's going to do it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think he'll win again. But they asked who we would like. I also wrote Celine Sciamma down.
Yeah. Is she, what's going on with her? Has not made a movie since Petite Maman.
Yeah, which was just absolutely magical.
Great film.
I don't know. People take time.
They do. Bob, any additions to this? Anybody you thought about that you're a big fan of?
Nothing really comes to mind. That's a pretty extensive list. I mean, I'd like to see Boots Riley win an Oscar because I think it would be funny, but I don't think that's really on the table.
You never know. You never know. Stranger things have happened. Okay, what's next?
I'm going to bounce around on this list here a little bit. So I'm going to go down to the bottom and ask a question from Roman. Can you remember the first time you were truly let down by a movie? Whether from your own expectations or from the marketing of the film? Thanks and lots of love.
The first time. Okay. I mean,
I have one very vivid memory.
go ahead.
I remember figuring out the twist of The Village like in 6 minutes and getting super mad the whole way through.
Yeah.
And knowing where it was going, and maybe that's when the Shyamalan twist thing codified in my mind. Obviously, it's something that he did in Unbreakable as well as in The Sixth Sense. But sitting there watching The Village and feeling like, is this, spoiler alert for The Village, which came out 21 years ago, are they just in modern times and they escaped
Got
to
it.
get away from society?
Yeah.
And then that being the exact thing was, it's not that I was like, oh, I'm smarter than movies, even though I know I act like that all the time on the
Right.
show. It was just that unfortunate thing where you're gratified by your own cleverness, but you're
Mhm.
disappointed by the fact that you sat in that feeling for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I
It's a bummer.
like that movie.
Yeah, but it's not what you want from that experience.
Exactly.
You want them to pull it off. The first thing that popped into my head was the 2010 film How Do You Know?
Great call. Great call.
Directed, a James L. Brooks comedy starring Reese Witherspoon. And it's just not, it just like 5 minutes in, you're like, oh, this isn't going to happen. This is not going to work.
That's a really good call. That's a tough one. Is that Nicholson's last or second to last movie? And Owen Wilson
Yeah,
in his Butterscotch Stallion era. You remember that?
I do. It was
Um,
just, it was just doesn't come together. Reese Witherspoon's a softball player.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Sure. Like you do.
You know,
She was based on, Bob, who was the blonde softball player? Was it Jenny something?
Oh, Jenny Finch?
Jenny Finch, yeah, who was kind of a phenomenon for a little window there. Felt inspired by Jenny Finch, right? I think that's right.
I never saw that movie, but if it's a blonde softball player, Jenny Finch is very famous. Lots of like weird, digital only content of like Jenny Finch striking out Major League Baseball players at like softball all-star games. That's a lot of good stuff. That's a real turn of the 2010s.
I remember that era very well. Do you know her? Do you know anything about her?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was
But another reason why this movie didn't pan out for me, because I wasn't there for like the real life tie-in.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's a really good call. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of movies
I know
in the
there are,
90s when
yeah.
I was, like The Sixth Day was a Schwarzenegger movie that came out in the late 90s where I was like, all right, cool. We're on a run here. He's got 9 good movies in a row. And it just was a stinker. And that led to, I think, like Eraser, The Sixth Day, End of Days. He had like a little run there at the end of the 90s. It was just Bummer Town. Where, like, they all weren't that great. But
I was really into Alicia Silverstone and Chris O'Donnell in 95, so Batman and Robin was...
You know what else was a bummer? Was Excess Baggage with Benicio del Toro. Did you see that one with Alicia Silverstone?
No.
I think she gets kidnapped by him. That was one where I was like, I think that might have been her first movie after Clueless.
Yeah.
And that did not hit.
What's the John Cusack movie about dogs? Must Love Dogs. Yeah, that I saw at the Battery Park AMC or Regal or whatever it was, that on a hot summer day didn't click.
Didn't play?
Yeah.
Must Love Dogs. Haven't seen that one. Diane Lane, John Cusack, Elizabeth Perkins, Dermot Mulroney, Stockard Channing, Christopher Plummer.
Well,
That's quite a cast
That's
for a movie called Must Love Dogs. Okay. What's next, Bob?
My answer for that, by the way, would be I Am Legend, which I thought was going to be the coolest, greatest movie ever. And I was 11 years old, and I was like, wow, this kind of fell apart.
That's a good shout. That movie is not good.
Yeah.
No. It's not. Next question comes from Austin. What are your favorite what ifs in movie history? As in movies that were almost made, actors almost cast in iconic parts, or directors almost directing certain movies?
So did you write these down? Or did Austin?
I didn't. I assume Austin did, right?
Okay.
So Austin gave us a bunch of fake or candidates, I guess, or maybe his favorites. They include Tom Hanks dropping out of Nixon,
okay,
and being replaced by Anthony Hopkins. I'm not sure if I knew that.
I didn't either.
Tom Hanks is a little young for Nixon in 95, wasn't he?
Yes.
David Fincher almost making World War Z. Now, David Fincher is my answer, but for a different movie that he almost made.
Okay.
My answer would be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was a movie that he was going to remake and would have been the biggest Fincher movie ever. And Disney, which owns the rights to that story because they made the Jules Verne adaptation back in the 50s, I want to say, were uncomfortable with the way that he wanted to shoot it. Hard to believe, a David Fincher movie. And it never happened. And now he's like rich and in his 60s and crushing it at Netflix, and he'll never go back and try to make something that hard, would be my guess. Also, Gosling wasn't fired from The Lovely Bones. That was a famous... I'm not sure The Lovely Bones could have been saved by Gosling, but Mark Wahlberg's terrible in that movie.
Which one is The Lovely Bones?
Peter Jackson adaptation of a story about a little girl who's killed, and like I think her like spirit presents itself and helps this guy solve what's the case.
I'm happy for Ryan Gosling.
Saoirse Ronan, Stanley Tucci.
Sure, I do. Yeah. Oh, and Stanley Tucci's the creepy. Yeah. Gosling's fine.
Emily Blunt, if she was let out of her contract at Fox to be Black Widow in the Avengers.
She's doing fine.
Okay. Keanu Reeves didn't tour with his band. Do you know the name of his band?
Dog something?
Dog Star.
I was
Must
right.
love Dog Star.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves didn't tour with his band Dog Star and did Heat instead of Val Kilmer. I think it worked out.
We're good.
And we got all that great Dog Star memorabilia. I've got that whole storage facility full of Dog Star stuff, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other ones that jump out to you?
Yeah. The Secret History adaptation that was supposed to be Alan Pakula and a screenplay by Didion and Dunn.
Whoa, is that a 90s thing?
Yeah, it's a 90s thing, and then he died.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is, who knows how true it is.
That would have been great.
I mean, it could have been great. It also could have been awful. But it's Didion and Dunn, lived very cool lives and hit and miss on the screenplays.
True.
But I would like to see a Secret History movie.
Agreed. Bobby, do you have a what if that you're interested in?
I don't know if this would be my number one in history, but I'm really curious what would have happened if Stanley Kubrick didn't die and he finished directing AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a movie that I might have liked more. And but I also in turn then would have liked to see where Spielberg would have put the energy that he was intrigued by with that script and movie into. Like, what movie would he have made because he didn't get to make AI and take it over from Kubrick? Would have been interesting.
We'll never know. Also, Kubrick almost made Napoleon,
Right.
Oh, that's a great one.
And
that's a great one.
And that Taschen book that is the entirety of the pre-production of Napoleon. That includes like the script, all the storyboards, all the costumes, like everything that had been picked out. And then I forget what the reason was that movie was not made. But that's literally a 700-page book with one of those Taschen books that has like that carbon paper. Like the paper is so thin, it's like you're reading an ancient Bible. Okay.
Kubrick's Napoleon plus Barry Lyndon could have been the greatest double feature of all time.
But he wouldn't have made Barry Lyndon if he had made Napoleon. That's why he took all that energy and research and put it into Barry Lyndon. So that would have been weird if he was like, now that I've completed Napoleon, I shall make Barry Lyndon.
What if he did Barry Lyndon first and then Napoleon?
Well,
okay, next question. Dana, can you talk about the movie theater business model? You mentioned in your Oscars Hangover Mailbag episode that certain movies would not be financially able to play in 1,000 theaters nationwide. Why is that? When a movie decides to have a limited release, I assume part of the way they control this is by picking certain cities. But do they also limit their movie to a certain number of theaters in that city? And if so, how do they choose?
It's both. It's an agreement between the theaters and the studios that they want to book certain films. In the case of Thunderbolts, there's not really much of a conversation. Every Disney movie plays on thousands of screens. They don't do limited release. They don't do, slow rollouts for films. I think this most adequately applies to like your A24s, your Neons, your Sony Pictures Classics, the films that like, usually start small, like Friendship opened over the weekend in only a few theaters around the country. Yeah. And I think it's going wide on Labor Day or on Memorial Day weekend. And so I think what the limited release opening is kind of testing the ground for how wide it can or should go. Friendship's the kind of movie to me that like, I would guess it'll go into like 1,500 theaters. It'll be a super competitive weekend because it's Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
So it's kind of like programming. But the theaters have to want to book the movie and the studios have to want to expand it. So it's like a negotiation and how they're booked. I don't know.
It's like a symbiotic relationship. It's kind of the reason that CinemaCon exists. Mm-hmm. Like it's not actually to, give us funny stories from Las Vegas. It is because these studios are to some extent courting the movie theaters. Mm-hmm. Now it's like a very bizarre codependent relationship because like what else are the theaters going to do? Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of we want you to show these things, but also you don't have any other options. But yeah, there's ongoing conversations between both sides of what is going to be the best business for us.
Yeah, and I don't think that there was too much talk about Sinners last year at CinemaCon. I think maybe Ryan Coogler was on set and shared like a Zoom video. Mm-hmm. And then this year, because the movie was 2 weeks away, there was hardly anything about Sinners at all. But that's the kind of movie that's kind of interesting in this question that's being asked, because that was a movie that fought for the premium large format screens and got them for 2 weeks. And then Thunderbolts came in and took those screens. And now, after 2 weeks, Sinners has taken them back. So I think Sinners is getting IMAX again this coming weekend. And that isn't something that was prearranged. It's something that basically was caused by demand. So as much like planning and strategizing as you can make, if a movie takes off, it can get theaters that it wasn't originally planning on, because the theater business has to be attentive to the customer demand. So it really is case by case. I don't know. What was the movie we were talking about where I was like, this movie can't play 1,000 screens? Was it Anora maybe?
Maybe. Yeah.
It might have been. I don't know what the maximum theater count that movie ever had was, even though it ended up doing like 20 million total in US box office. But the business is in a weird spot. It's harder and harder to find phenomenons, and so they have to be like more reactive. You can't just be like 9 months in advance. You can't just be like, well, our schedule is locked. Like, do you know what the number 5 movie at the box office was this weekend?
Revenge of the Sith?
No, good guess.
Thank you.
Clown in a Cornfield.
Okay.
Which is a new horror movie from IFC and Shudder, which is pretty fun. And
great title.
It is what is on the label.
The premise. Yeah. So it's like thousands of beavers or hundreds of beavers.
But with murderous clowns.
Which one is it hundreds or thousands?
It's hundreds.
But thousands could be the sequel.
Could be. The hundreds of beavers folks I know are listeners to this show.
I listen. The greatest title ever ever.
It was a great
written.
film. Clown in a Cornfield is I didn't have that on my bingo card as like opening at number 5
Well.
a month ago, 6 months ago for sure. But here we are. We live in a time. Horror reigns. Bob, what's next?
Philip asks, my question is, which fake movie from the studio works the best?
Okay, so I am not caught up yet. All right.
Oh, okay.
Because
I think all of the ones that Philip mentioned here are probably from episodes that you've seen. There's Sarah Polley's artful drama about a woman finding herself.
Yeah. I've seen that one.
There's Scorsese's Buscemi vehicle Kool-Aid.
Sure.
And there's Ron Howard's Taxi Driver action movie.
Oh,
Those
right.
are the options that he's given.
Where they got
I think there are more throughout the series, so maybe you don't, but these are the three that Philip mentions.
I'm sorry. Once again, I was watching a lot of Paul Newman movies. Which has the most commercial viability?
Which works the best is how it's phrased.
I mean, you gotta go with Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's and I would watch it, even though like I slightly agree with Catherine Hahn. It's like Steve Buscemi, wonderful actor, is not like the first person I pick to headline.
Because he's not beautiful enough, or like, what are your thoughts there?
No, I just well, it's I mean, I guess it's a new spin on a cult leader, and so it's a different interpretation of the magnetism and the cult of personality, literally, that sprouts up. But,
In the most recent episode, Zoe Kravitz appears in the episode.
Oh, cool.
And she is nominated for an award for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then she is pitching a future film.
Yeah.
The future film is called Blackwing. I won't spoil it for you.
Okay.
But that's the one that I was the most like, I would like to see that. So that's my answer.
Okay.
The Ron Howard movie I thought looked terrible.
Yeah. Not my vibe.
Funny episode, but thought that looked really bad.
I thought it was a really funny episode just because of the way that they went about it, where they were like, I love this movie. And then it went on for 45 more minutes.
We've been there. We've been there.
We've all had.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've literally also been in that screening room.
Oh,
that's
the literal one?
Yeah, no, that was on the Warner Brothers lot. That's that's where I saw Horizon Part 1. That's where I've seen you've been in this room.
I've been in that room.
That room.
Oh, it's that room?
Yeah,
okay.
Where what else have I seen there? That's where I saw The Way Back. One of the last that's the Ben Affleck movie.
Sports drama, yes.
Sports drama. That was like one of the last pre-pandemic movies that I saw. Trying to think. But so yeah, I've literally been in that. Though they sit in the middle.
In the front.
In the front. I will sit in the front, but aisle forever.
Back.
Yeah.
Okay, next question comes from Tim. I'm curious about why Amanda majored in classics and hope that she will discuss it some on the pod. I was the only person with the major in my entire graduating class, and I meet so few people who share this background, so I'm genuinely interested. But the real question for the movie podcast is, does Amanda feel or think any sort of way about the ancient history movies? Asking this with the idea, of course, that we have Nolan's Odyssey adaptation coming in hot. So this is going to be a point of discussion.
I don't know if I've ever heard you answer this.
Thank you so much, Tim, for asking, for being curious. So I think the reason, I went to Dartmouth and they have a wonderful classics program and they just have a lot of like great professors. And so I think I had to take a survey course and I met Edward Bradley is one of the professors. And it just seemed sort of like a small college, like old school, like fun experience. I like part of it was the professors in the department. But the other thing was it did feel like the classics were the building blocks for most of like Western storytelling. And so because I liked reading, because I like movies, because I like the arts, I was like, this seems like my blind spot. And so to study these stories and this world will then give me the language, like story language to read everything else. And that is sort of true, at least for the Western canon.
What was your intention? Like, what did you hope to do with it?
Nothing, which is, useless.
Okay.
I mean,
you weren't like to be an academic or to be just a journalist.
There was a time where I thought maybe I will be an academic. I did also like maybe want to work in books or magazines, or I think maybe I thought I wanted to be in books for a while.
I'm surprised you didn't become a book editor now that I know you as well as I do.
Because I like it was on the table, but it's so slow. And I wanted to do magazines. Like magazines is actually the fusion of books and then my attention span.
Well, back then, but
back then, and now
it's TikTok
sure.
and one magazine. Yeah.
But so, I mean, I do like reading, so I thought it would be useful. So that's why so as a result, I don't really think that it affects, I don't pay a huge amount of attention to, they don't really make that many like classics adaptations. I'm obviously very excited for the Odyssey, but I would say that it more informs the way that I watch all movies or something, you can just, it's not even that they're ripping it off. You just like, I have a respect for the patterns and the forms and the formulas of literature and what people can do with them. And I it's not copying to me. It's that real artistry is in finding a fresh way to tell like the three stories that like we all come back to.
I was thinking about this particular concept actually over the weekend. I was listening to Plain English, Ringer podcast hosted by Derek Thompson, and their episode last week was about, is this the worst time in American pop culture? Like, are things as bad as they've ever been? And Spencer Kornhaber, who's a writer at The Atlantic, I guess had written a piece about it. I have not read that piece. But they were Derek was kind of premising it upon a couple of things, one of which was music and how new music accounts for the lowest amount of listening than it ever has, apparently, in the kind of American consciousness. But then the other thing was just that the IPization of movies and television has created this kind of circling the drain quality, which is something that we talk about all the time, hopefully have been nuanced about over time. The one thing that kind of like scratched at me as they were having their chat and that Derek was zeroing in on was, it's not that it's just IP. Like, over 100 plus years of movies, this is even more true in the centuries of books, is that there is like an archetypal story structure that is repeated. And I would venture to guess there's been more than 10 adaptations of Robin Hood in movies since 1920. I would venture to guess the same is true of Christ-like stories or of Knight's Tales or of Romeo and Juliet-esque doomed lovers. And sure, like, there's something super specific and kind of soul deadening about 11 Transformers movies in 15 years.
Right.
But even the Transformers movies are like underdog stories about a band, like a group of bandits who have to overcome, the more powerful, galaxy conquering Zeus-like figure. Like, so if you kind of like pull back a little bit, I think you can be a little bit more generous about the state of stories if you put it in that context. But you kind of have to do some of the work that you were doing in college, I think, to have that perspective on it.
Well, also, the first Transformers movie, which is
a masterpiece, thank you.
Well, but also like a fresh spin on, Robin Hood, but also, I don't know, Sisyphus or, whatever. The first time you're reinterpreting it in that way, or you're starting with this recognizable story, like in a new world, and what does that new world like teach you? It's fun. By the eighth one, when you've then had to like reinvent and add like 5 more villains, and you've gotten away from the basic story structure, you're saddled with all this canon, and also like it's just robots going like this, like the robots going like this is the only good thing.
But that is very good.
So, but yeah, and it is very good. But it's like I think what you're saying is true and right, and is honestly like a lot of the reason that we like genre movies, because genre movies are just these archetypes and stories that like we know so well.
That get filled.
By the way, we're not doing anything. This is just Joseph Campbell. Like it's not. We're not like reinventing the wheel here. So I think you're totally right, and then it is also possible to get saddled down in like sequelitis and just a hat on a hat on a hat. On a robot.
I think I just get a little bit concerned with people who are like, it's never been worse. And I'm like, how many, did you watch all 280 films that were released in 1937?
Right.
Like, if you didn't, I'm not sure you're qualified to absolutely certify that fact, because at that time, there were tons of incredibly redundant Westerns that were using the same story structure over and over and over again. Maybe they didn't have as much lore attached to them as what we have now, but they had a kind of blandness in the way that they told their story that you could just completely tune them out. What's worse? Like, I think it's all just a kind of a squishy debate, and I'm as guilty of anybody of raising the temperature on a take. But it's an interesting thing to think about, even at our lowest moment, that most of this stuff is just iterating on stories that are thousands of years old, which you studied. Not thousands of years ago. How many years ago did you study?
Like
6 years
4.
ago.
And
4
I
years
remember
ago,
everything.
yeah.
That's the other thing. That my mastery of both dead languages, ancient Greek and Latin, was exact. And anytime Zach and I are traveling and we find like a Latin inscription, he just loves to be like, all right, what does that say, big kid? I've never gotten one right. Like literally never.
Latin is hard.
The other reason I majored was that you had to there was a language requirement. And for most languages that are spoken, you had to go to language lab.
Mm-hmm.
But for Latin, obviously you didn't. So a lot of the athletes and especially all the hockey players took Latin. And so I just like took Latin with the hockey players, which was a great time. They knew how to throw a party.
Enough said. Bob, what'd you study in college?
I studied the good old journalism.
Oh, good.
I have a journalism degree at New York University, which is my alma mater, beloved. Definitely no problems going on there at all these days. They make you double major. You can't just major in journalism. So I was also an American studies major.
Oh, yeah, the classic American studies.
Yeah. The one true myth.
Zach was a social studies major,
I'm
which is
aware
the
of that.
actual myth.
Honestly, yeah. American studies is basically just like social studies, but they're like, we've thought differently about it now.
Yeah.
You know, we have some different takes on it. So those are my majors.
Okay. What's next?
Question comes from Cameron. Question for Sean. As a burgeoning physical media obsessive, I'm curious if there are any Blu-ray white whales out there that you've been hunting for but haven't been able to obtain. I've been trying to find 28 years later at a sub $100 price.
I believe they're reissuing 28 days and weeks later ahead of the
they should.
release of the new film. So that you can take that one off your list. I do have the double disc that features both movies on one thing, which I don't know when I got it. Must have been a long time ago, probably around when it came out. So I do have that. Dogma is like a long desired one that is finally coming out. They're re-releasing the movie in theaters in June.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what to do. To
you
finally do Kevin Smith, try to get Kevin on the show, Matt and Ben on the show, CR, Yasi threw her hat in the ring. She wants in.
Oh, really?
She wants because the Alanis of it all.
I really like Dogma, but I just assumed that you guys were going to just
go
full
You're
Kevin
more than
Smith.
welcome. I mean, it could be a 9-person pod. You sit between Matt and Ben.
Yeah, that seems great.
So I was thinking about this also when we were doing Paul Newman. There was a really great Blu-ray company that went out of business some 5 or 6 years ago called Twilight Time, and they issued editions of Exodus, Ombre, and The Long Hot Summer on Blu-ray, and those are all like $80, $100 on eBay, and I'm like, I don't really know that I need to own these movies, but I would like to have them for my collection. So those are on my list, and then Near Dark is probably the single biggest one. There is I'm almost certain there's an existing American edition of Catherine Bigelow's vampire movie, but it's consistently like at least $100 on eBay. And it's weird that it hasn't been issued. I have to assume it's like a music rights thing, that it hasn't been re-released because a lot of people would buy it. But that's the short list I made. There's also like hundreds of movies that are just not available in the format that I could make a 10-hour episode of, but I won't do that.
Okay.
To spare you.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to own on Blu-ray? Everyone is like, when will the domino fall? When will she topple?
I don't have a collector's mindset. I just don't for this. So like the thing where you're like, I really need to own The Long Hot Summer. I think it's important that people be able to see movies, that like they not be lost to, time and corporations and the foibles of technology and licensing. But like, I just don't have that mindset where it's like, I need to have every single thing here in my house right now.
Okay.
And I do understand like the format also. For books, I prefer to have like, I guess I'm a physical media for books. I mean, like you've seen my house. It's really,
I was going to call you on this, but I'm glad you will cite this.
But I can't there's no way to be definitive with books, And so I just kind of buy the ones that I want to have and that I want to revisit. And I don't know. I'd rather go to a movie theater to see an old movie. I'll put the money towards like Vidiots, just showing more stuff that I want to see all the time.
Okay.
But that's where I am. I really honestly don't think it's going to happen. The plastic's also really ugly. Like I just do actually think it's pretty ugly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's where I am.
Next question comes from Scott. I recently spent an entire Saturday enjoying a Los Angeles movie marathon with a friend of mine. We watched Hail Caesar, Boogie Nights, Wrath of Man, Point Break, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you had an entire Saturday to spend watching a themed movie marathon, what theme would you pick? And what snacks might you have?
I mean, I do this all the time. This is my job. So the question is not that novel to me.
You don't need to be snotty about it. I have a fun idea.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a thing I've been thinking about.
Okay.
And I think inspired by like a couple drafts that we've done and that I was sort of able to do it. So I would do a yuppie cinema. And also it's inspired by certain parts of people's lives, not naming any names. So here's what I've got so far. Baby Boom, Working Girl, Broadcast News, Wall Street, Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
And then I think you gotta have like pesto pasta with sun-dried tomatoes, and what are some other really, really 80s foods?
You want to watch 10 straight hours of moderately wealthy people having problems that are manageable.
Don't you? But it's an interesting cultural moment. It is also just because those are all like 87, 88, 89. So they are movies about my parents, more or less, and the time that we were born into, which is sort of interesting. I find it funny. I love Working Girl. I love Broadcast News. I love Fatal Attraction. I think like Baby Boom and Wall Street are culturally interesting, and I like them. I don't know. It's like a funny.
Who's watching your kids while you do this?
Right. I guess the person who inherits them via a mechanism that's never really explained in Baby Boom. It's okay.
Yeah, there's a flaw in the film. I don't know. I mean, I did this for the Free to Cinema last year. The great
you don't have
cinema
to be
in the
angry.
OC. I'm not angry.
You're just kind of like I do this.
I'm not
it's
angry.
A mailbag.
I'm literally just like my whole job is thinking of themes for movies and then watching the movies and then explaining the theme on a podcast.
Sure. Yes. So when I was getting ready this morning and I was doing
when you
my
were wearing
prep.
several
so
masks.
I wore my LED mask for part of it.
Yeah.
And then this was crucially when I took my LED mask off. But I was just sitting there looking at my computer and like Zach came in the room and like looked at my face and then like looked scared in a way that I recognized.
Yeah.
And
it was like Darth Vader taking off the mask.
Yeah, no, he was like, and I realized I had to explain my facial expression, and I was like, I'm just doing some mailbag questions, and I'm thinking, I'm modulating my reaction. And I was like, you didn't do anything. He was like, okay, I thought I did something, and then he said to me, he was like, be kind to your public. They want to ask you questions. So be kind to your public. They want to ask you questions.
I know you're not giving me this lecture after 8 years of being unkind on this podcast. Okay, what's next, Bob? Bob, you have a marathon that you would program?
I mean, it's hard for me not to just think about the fact that I would watch every Mission Impossible movie in one day, but that's really too obvious. Yeah. This is one of my favorite things about rep theaters is when they curate stuff like this, that you can tell that they're really just kind of like searching for a theme and then putting all these movies in there. Yeah. Like Metrograph does a really great job of this. Right now they have a collection of illustrating the future, like all the movies that Sid Mead did the production design for, which I went and saw.
That's cool.
Blade Runner during. So like little stuff like that I think is really cool. So if this is the type of brain that you have when it comes to watching movies, check out your local rep theater.
They
or listen to this podcast.
Or listen to this podcast.
I hope you're already listening
Bob,
to this podcast.
I'm just clocking this artwork behind you.
Oh yeah.
Is this new?
No, this is I've had for a little while, but since we moved,
you rehung it. I like it a lot.
I put it in my office. Thank you. Yeah.
There you go.
Spencer asks, my question is about family movie traditions the three of you had growing up. For me, it was a blockbuster runs every Friday night, immediately after school, no exceptions. So what were those family movie traditions you had growing up, and any you're looking to pass on to family and friends?
I mean, blockbuster runs are also part of our youth.
I mean,
so
totally.
It's not that dramatically different.
Spending hours and hours and like, looking at the backs of VHSs and hoping that there would be like a cassette behind the cover, that you could grab.
A very resonant feeling.
But the family tradition that comes to mind is, I think probably started when in high school or maybe when I was or college, but for Thanksgiving night and Christmas night, I would always go to the movies with my dad and usually my Aunt Betty and Uncle John. And that's a fun thing to do. But my dad always had the pick, and just like a hilarious run of like the worst holiday movies, like The Savages, like Synecdoche, New York. I'm trying to think of
that will now make it 3 references to Synecdoche, New York on this podcast.
What else? Let's see. What's something and a half grams with 9 grams? Do you remember the drug movie?
Yeah, the Inarritu movie.
Yeah, the Inarritu.
Is it 9.5?
Yeah. Well, like all the numbers get jumbled together, but it was not an uplifting holiday movie. So, and then I remember, and then so
21 grams.
21 grams, yeah. So he just like gets it incredibly wrong, and I'm sitting there with my aunt and uncle just being like, this is like really inappropriate for all of us to be watching this together. Or, classics like we went to see the romantic comedy Morning Glory, which is wonderful. And when we left, my dad was like, so will that win any Oscars? Same reaction to Chris Rock's Top 5, which was, I think, the first holiday movie that Zach and my dad spent together. Oh, no. It was actually Inside Llewyn Davis, which my dad and Zach absolutely loved. And I was like, it was pretty good. And then my dad said, Amanda doesn't like it if people don't talk in the movies, which is true, which was great criticism. So
hard to believe you ended up here.
So my dad roasting me on the holidays is my favorite holiday movie tradition.
We didn't have a ton of traditions. I went to the movies all the time, obviously, with my parents. My parents split up when I was about 10. And so I would spend every other weekend at my dad's house. My dad lives on the beach in a kind of like really run down version of a Michael Mann house. And he lived in, what was the name of the community? It was right next to Gilgo Beach where all those terrible murders happened. And, when we were kids, every Saturday night, HBO premiered a new movie at 8 p.m. on the network. And so sometimes it would be a comedy, and sometimes it would be an action movie. And sometimes it would be like an absolutely depraved crime drama. And my dad, like every Saturday night, was like, let's watch the HBO movie, whatever the new HBO movie is. And I'm certain that I saw several men get their heads blown off at like 10 years old because my dad was like, whatever, we're watching this. And my brother was 6 at the time. So that's a fond memory that I have of being a kid and seeing movies. I mean, as far as right now, what traditions we have, Alice and I go to the movies all the time. Eileen comes with us, obviously, a lot of the time too. And now every Sunday we've been watching a Godzilla movie, which has been really fun. And it's like themed up. And she's like, I'm ready for Godzilla. Let's do it. We watched Ibira Horror of the Deep, which is about a giant evil crustacean that goes to war with Godzilla yesterday. Wasn't my favorite, but Alice just standing on the couch cheering during the fights. Just like, I need Godzilla to do it. And like at one point Godzilla rips off the crustacean's claw and starts beating him with it. Great moment. Mothra is her fave. So she's like really cheering cute. Mothra on to wake up because like all of the native people that like worship at Mothra's feet, and then they have to like sing a song to awaken her. Okay. And so she'll be like, wake up, Mothra, wake up. Anyway, a really weird tradition that we have going, but inspired in part by Tracy, who told me that he and his son had been watching all the kaiju movies and she's been digging it. So that's a good one.
That's really nice.
Yeah. You and your family have any?
We have Friday night movie nights.
Okay.
But it's mostly Knox just being like, I want to watch either Porco Rosso. Thanks to Sean and Bobby for that recommendation. Boys, though I do have to say at one point that like Knox had a straw and then put it in his mouth like a cigarette, and he's like, I'm being like Porco. And I was like, well, maybe I should have screened this. Yeah. I think CR has watched Porco with Knox many times on Friday night movie night.
Elite.
Robin Hood's.
Planes, he hates animation, but
he does love planes.
They are really beautiful planes. Robin Hood's really in the rotation after Vidiots did the special screening.
Great one, the Disney one.
Top Gun Maverick, obviously, and Mary Poppins has really been hanging on in a big way.
Okay.
Yeah, Singing in the Rain has fallen out, which is a little depressing for me, but we had a good run.
These things come in waves.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Want to do one more, Bob?
Yeah, I really love this question from Sharon. Sharon says, on an earlier episode, Sean mentioned that he anticipated years down the road conversations with future filmmakers about the film I Saw the TV Glow. This film was appreciated and discussed by critics and cinephiles, but remained largely unknown to the wider public. From this comment, I began to wonder what other films from the last few years that were not widely recognized by the Academy or general public have been added to the film canon. What are the lesser known recent films that are the most likely to inspire the next generation of filmmakers?
I like that question. Before we get into it, Jane Schoenbrun's new movie was just announced a few days ago, which I think they talked about on the show, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which is going to star Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson, which is at movies, so that's exciting. I wrote some stuff down. Like, I just tried to look at the last few years of movies that we liked, that were, cinephilic, but maybe didn't take off in any other way. The biggest one for me from last year is Nickel Boys, which I think still hasn't really found its cult moment. Like, it was really loudly proclaimed. It's just a tough movie to watch at home because if you have any distraction, you kind of lose your way in it. So, but I do think that that's a movie that you could see a world where even like 2 years from now, it gets like a repertory screening reputation.
I mean, that's what'll happen.
And then also last year, I thought of Red Rooms, which we talked about multiple times, though we never devoted an episode to it. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see it.
I didn't, but it was like a solid 25 minutes on the top films of the year.
Yes. Well, me and Adam and Chris were all like, in the sicko meme throughout the entire film. And I've seen that film start to get memed a little bit online, that in a way that tends to signal that it's going to be a big one. I don't know. What are some other ones for you in recent years?
I wrote down Nope and was surprised that you didn't. Which I understand it was moderately successful.
It made like $300 million, so or maybe not that much. It made a lot of money.
But it did make a lot of money. But it's funny, even some thread that you started was having some fight about like Jordan Peele and how many are like hits and how many are misses, and Nope was like really tossed up, Yeah,
it was 170 is what it made ultimately. Okay. Yeah, which is good but not great.
But I like that has been a real cause of yours and a lot of cinephiles of just like, this is the one.
Yeah, I mean it's you're right, and I think that there is an increasing belief among some people that is kind of, even though it's not as fun a movie as Get Out, that its themes are so big,
right?
But it's also a movie about movies.
Yeah.
And movies about movies, I think something is like held against them a little bit too. Like, they can get very culty, but then it's a little bit like, this is only for nerds. But yeah, I like Nope. That's a good one. I just some obvious ones like Babylon.
Sure.
We've spent a lot of time on. It didn't really do very much business or do much with the Oscars. X and Pearl, the first two movies in Ty West's trilogy, I think are really, really big among cinephiles. People love those movies. The Fabelmans.
We've been trying.
I think we're going to get to the end of the decade and people are going to say this is one of the most important movies of his career. And some people did say that, and we were very passionate about it on the show, but it was not a huge Oscar movie. It didn't do that well at the box office.
Right.
It was almost like Spielberg waited too long to make his super personal, biographical story for some people, but there are many shots in that movie that are very self-reflexive and get people kind of like pondering about themselves, about their relationship to movies, about their relationship to art.
It's a great movie. It is also, as soon as you said, I think Fabelmans is the answer, but also we all slept on West Side Story. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, you and I didn't. Like, we loved it, and
both
obviously it was affected by the pandemic, but it was like, this is like a really great movie by one of our great living filmmakers, and no one seems to really care. I
was a little cool on a bunch of Spielberg stuff in the 2010s, and I've been super hot on his last two and think that they're among his best movies of the last 25 years. So there's others like First Cow, I think also got a big hit because it was one of the last movies released before COVID.
Right.
And so like a lot of people streamed it and watched it at home. And so, I think Kelly Reichardt's kind of profile was raised somewhat among younger movie watchers. I see you wrote Baby Girl.
I see it percolating.
That's an interesting one.
It's like I think that it had a certain corner of cinephiles, and then also it obviously wasn't like widely seen, though it did pretty well. It did pretty well. Having
People
Nicole
were asking
Kidman.
us about Nicole Kidman not being on our list, on our 35 over 35. That seemed to be the big omission, and there's always one where we forget about somebody. I wouldn't have put her on the list though, because she hasn't been the star of a movie that was an authentic box office hit in like 15 years.
Right.
It's been a really long time. It doesn't mean her movies aren't good.
It might, honestly, what happened might have been that she fell off eligibility for one of the prior lists because she does so much TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that was the other reason.
And then we just forgot.
Yeah. The other reason was she just does a ton of television. And so she's kind of shifted.
But this is really Baby Girl. People are seeing it. People are referencing it. It's like, I think it's starting to get memed a little bit, like the milk and everything. You can just kind of. What
do you think about the take that it didn't go far enough? That it should have been even more sexually explicit and or depraved?
There are plenty of sexually explicit or depraved movies out there.
Okay.
I think to me, it didn't feel dishonest or censored in that way. Like the parts that fell a little flat were like the girl boss stuff and not the sex stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that what was interesting about that movie was that it was exploring that particular character's sort of specific set of desires, which were taboo, but not like perverted and weird, or not too perverted and too weird, just kind of like something that you're not supposed to say, rather than...
It wasn't like violent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what makes it interesting, is the specificity of it. So I liked Baby Girl.
I liked it too. Bobby, what about you? You got some recent classics that you think are going to go in the canon in the next few years?
I'll throw two at you. I don't know that this movie is going into the canon, but I do think it's doing weird enough stuff that people who make films will cite it in 20 years, and that film is Megalopolis. There's some stuff visually and just audacity-wise that I think is inspirational to people who want to make the movies. And of course, there was enough coverage about that movie that there's a lot to learn about it. The other one is The Northman. I think a lot of people are going to be like, that inspired me to make something so dedicated to a specific vision about a story that is not necessarily commercial, but is still an incredible act of filmmaking. Those are the two that I would cite.
Both really good shouts. Megalopolis comes up again in our conversation with Alex.
It does.
Because
King of the segue.
Yeah, well, thank you. Should we go there right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to our conversation right now with Alex Ross Perry. Thanks so much for all your questions out there. Alex Ross Perry is here. He's here to talk about Pavements, but I was thinking about this. You more so, I think, even than CR, than Tracy Letts, than all of these, Van Lathan, these Joanna Robinson, these people who like would be king, would be third chair. Like, you have been fighting the fight for longer than anybody, I feel like, on this show.
I will say at no point in that sentence that I know where it was going. It started off...
As soon as Tracy came into the picture, I was like, okay, I know where this is going.
I thought it started off about we're going to talk about tapes or something. Or movies.
No.
Or, physical movies. But then you just pivoted to people I've never met. Maybe. I mean, I guess I was just saying, this is, maybe the fourth. Have I recorded in more physical spaces for appearances than any guest?
Because you guys did one in New York.
You were there?
Well, no, that you did one without me in New York, but I was thinking last night when you were talking about the long process of making this movie that we recorded the day that the day before you were doing your Pavements Museum exhibition. And when we were in New York and you were trying to explain to us what was going on, and I nodded politely.
And I made promises in that was New York Film Festival.
Yeah.
So it would have been September 2022. 22, yeah.
22.
It was 22.
Almost 3 years ago. And I made promises about what the movie would be. And I was like, it's this and this and this. And
you followed through.
It did actually happen.
I know, it's weird when stuff like that works out. Sean came to the museum that's in the movie. We recorded in person. That was, I think, something I've never heard replicated, which is we did horror draft and you just gave commentary, which I was extremely into. And I feel like that format has never been repeated
in many ways, that is half of these episodes are him just being like, let me tell you about Minecraft. And I'm just like, let me tell you about the rest of the world.
This was really like me, you, and Chris had draft prep And you were like, I'm
Sure.
here to talk about my aversion to this genre and my unwillingness to explore it at all. And it was, I thought, quite good.
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about you. I think of you every Halloween now and your various backyard
That's right.
installations. How is that going?
It's going to pop off this year because I moved upstate.
Right,
so I have
right.
a big yard now.
Okay, but everything came with you.
Well, I only had a few things and they
But-
were small.
Can you share any of your plans for this
Well,
year?
I've already started buying blow molds.
Okay, good.
My plans are that I moved and like Facebook Marketplace,
Yeah.
like in small towns is
Sure.
really useful. In New York, it's not. In LA, it's probably not.
Okay.
And you can start picking up Halloween blow molds in like March.
Okay.
And I'm collecting.
You gonna open it to the public? Is it like another
No.
museum?
But I was told when we looked at the house, like Halloween in this town is crazy.
Oh, good.
So I was like, good. I need to compete.
You said you're somewhat proximate to Sleepy Hollow, which is exciting.
Yeah, we're like less than an hour.
It's a lovely
And
part
that's further
of New York.
south, but
Yeah.
we'll be there.
Well, so wait, in terms of recording, so
This has gone. The amount of information covered in like 3 minutes is so astonishing at this point.
this is how we do.
Because me trying to talk about how many locations I visited.
So you
to
wait,
now we're
wait,
talking
wait.
about my Halloween.
So you're here in
decorations.
LA. You've
Yeah.
never recorded with us in LA before? No, you did in
No,
Hollywood.
you.
came into the old studio in Hollywood.
And I think you've said was like year 1 of the show.
it might have been year 1. Was it for Golden Exits?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you also went to the Manhattan office in One World Trade. You also went to the Brooklyn studio, which is no
Right.
longer open.
So this is my 4th physical.
No, there's one more. Do you remember?
Oh, in South by
At
Southwest.
South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Yes, with
Oh.
Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now that's obviously not a proprietary space of yours, but
Well, it
Okay.
is now. I
Yeah.
bought it after that conversation, and I wanted to memorialize
another
that space.
Spotify land grab.
Yeah.
So I've recorded in a huge amount of physical spaces, which is weird because I feel like I often do it on Zoom also.
That's true. You've been on Zoom a few times. My point is,
Has anyone else been in that many spaces other than employees of this company?
I don't think so.
I mean, I haven't been in that many spaces.
Yeah, that's not true.
Because I'm not South by Southwest, and I don't think I've ever been in the Manhattan studio. So
Is that true?
Really?
yeah,
Wow, we gotta.
Your last New
correct
York trip
that.
was the Brooklyn studio.
I guess so. Yeah.
Shame on you.
Well,
What have you
sorry,
been doing?
I had
Having
a child.
kids? Yeah, tough.
It's only slightly more austere than this one.
Okay.
You don't feel warm and at home here.
It's warm.
Okay.
I might
Yeah.
take my jacket off during
It
the
is.
recording.
I'm
which
wearing
now that
short
we're on-
sleeves.
We are
today.
also
that's-
allowed to stop down and adjust the temperature.
Yeah,
I see you, Jack.
you
Thank
walk
you for your
into a-
support always.
You walk into an office like this and you're like, it's either going to be 55 degrees in here and I need to wear a jacket for 2 hours, or it's going to be like weirdly warm because
Yeah.
of the lights.
Mhm.
I think it being an unseasonably warm 93 degrees in Los Angeles this morning is a
Mhm.
factor. We don't quite know how to react to that in May. It's usually 70 or lower in May, oddly, in this city. Anyhow, hey, welcome to
Scintillating stuff.
Yeah.
You
made a
screened
movie.
Pavements last night.
Yes,
You've been
we did.
screening it around the country, around the world. You went to Canada.
Relatively, yeah.
I went to Venice.
Yes, I went to Venice.
You went to Venice.
Famously.
The New York Film Festival.
Yeah. The world's getting smaller when you include that. But Rotterdam, and it played a bunch of places I didn't go.
Rotterdam, pretty
Well,
fancy.
the London Film Festival,
Mhm.
Okay.
which, should be on your radar.
It should. I'd love to go.
Feels like the kind of thing you could lobby for.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, she could lobby and I could decline.
Would you decline London in October?
I love London.
October. Oh, that would be. We could. Is it like right after New York, or is it before?
It is
New York?
directly after New York.
Oh, so we could just keep going. Keep flying east.
Okay, sure.
You know?
Thanks for furthering
It's
this
really
issue we have
it's a
on the show
festival I
here.
have a lot of affinity for.
Okay, but you did not go, or you did?
I did.
Okay.
It's held in the Prince Charles among dozens of other theaters.
We love the Prince Charles.
We do.
It's a beautiful time of year to be in a beautiful place, and I was there for this. And then
Okay.
when you're young, you can go to 15 international festivals. When
Mhm.
you have a family, you can go to like 2.
Right.
Has the film been rapturously received, and have you been called a genius?
Yeah, it has. Yes, these are all true things, which is interesting. Not because I want that for myself, but because it's an obtuse thing that's risky and strange, and it's the risk of failure in this is severe. Not because it's like controversial, but because it's like you're just giving someone something that's in a shape that is radically unfamiliar,
Mm-hmm.
and the response could just be like, "Nice try." Right? Like I can't even think of something that's like. So the fact that people are
Megalopolis, perhaps?
almost, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
That's-
a little hint of that. This is the
I feel a
indie rock
huge-
megalopolis.
I feel a huge affinity for Megalopolis, and when I saw it, basically like 4 or 5 days before our New York premiere, I was like, "This is so in step with what I'm about." And I loved the experience of being like, "This is just someone else who's working through something and going like, why does it have to be this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I just like do something different?" I wish the film had gone further. as I've conveyed to you, my ultimate edit of Megalopolis is it edited together with this Mike Figgis documentary.
Oh, yes.
Where it's like,
have you seen that?
no.
I would
But
love-
like,
yeah.
as with this movie, which you've now both seen, like, wouldn't most movies, or at least a Megalopolis type movie, be better if it's like, this scene's not working? And then you just cut to them making the scene and you're like, all right, now this has some juice.
Well, some of the greatest movies of all time do have that component. Like Apocalypse Now has that,
Right.
Fitzcarraldo has that, and those movies' legends are bigger because of the fact that those things exist. That sort of like external documentary about the making of the thing. But you decided to put
Yeah.
the documentary inside
Yeah.
the making of the scripted film and the musical that is also inside another kind of documentary about a reunion. Like it is
Yeah.
all of the pieces all together smashed in.
It's like a turducken.
It is, yeah.
A thing I feel like people used to talk about a lot.
I was going to say, do we need to translate that for people under 30 who listen to this podcast
Yeah, why
who
was that,
weren't
like-
on the internet?
Yeah, it was like a meme before me. Like people just thought it
Right.
was funny.
My memory of it is that it was John Madden at the NFL games on the Thanksgiving that was rolling out the turducken to
Turducken.
be served to whomever
Again,
was attending.
Is everyone under 30,
Do they even
logging
know who
on to that?
John Madden is?
I don't know. Do they play that game?
Many people do.
Okay.
I don't know. The
It's a
movie-
turducken of a movie, but which I've never said before, and I'll never say again because it's a horrifying phrase. But Malcolm has said about Wowie Zowie, it's an album with its own B-sides on it. 18 tracks,
Right.
as opposed to the traditional 10, 11, 12. So we just thought, let's like make a movie with its own discarded material in it, but let's make a movie with its own EPK in it.
But you also told
Electronic press
But like,
kit. Let's make a movie with its own like table read in it. Let's make a movie with its own, like I'm in the movie. Like make
You
a
are.
movie with the director in the movie, both as a character and then in like footage. I didn't know we had a camera rolling when I was talking, but I'm like, sure, put it in. Like that's a fine moment.
but the extra material also becomes part of the text
It
itself.
does. It is the text.
Yeah.
It's the text because it's like a movie about process. I don't know. Like this is a weird thing to say if you haven't seen it, but like if you're making a documentary, which I'd never done before, except for my short piece on Paul Schrader for the Criterion Channel, it's like, what are you making? And you make something first, and then that dictates what you're shooting next. And then you're like, we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. And the first thing we filmed was 7, 8, 9 days of the band rehearsing. And we were like, this could be very boring. And I thought it was very interesting. So then the next thing we filmed, I thought, well, the buildup to the show became more interesting than the show itself. I feel like we're probably going to skew like 70-30.
Mhm.
And then the 70-30 became kind of like, that should be everything. And as you may know, the structure of this film to me, I was like, let's just rip off Dunkirk.
Okay.
I
see it. I see it.
I think once I say that, people are like, that's incredibly obvious now that you say it.
Yeah.
It is.
And
it
it was-
is like a
I
tripartite.
I did not think of
No, you
Dunkirk
wouldn't.
while watching it.
But it is things taking place in different temporal spans.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Dunkirk is a week, a day, and an hour. And about an hour into the movie, they all are happening at the same time. And I seriously, when I was in the movie, I was like, I've never seen something like this.
Mhm.
I cannot believe that these three things converged, seeming like they've taken place concurrently, even though I know they haven't. And I just got really excited by like, this is a $100 million World War II film made by one of our greatest. Let's just copy that as a structure and a format for a nonfiction film about a 90s alternative rock band. Because building these different components into a cohesive thing just felt achievable to say, like, we'll hit that Dunkirk moment like an hour and 10 into our movie, where everything is suddenly like it's locked in. And now like all four wheels are turning at the same time. And the moment in the movie where the band is performing a song called Grounded, well known to fans, at the Fonda Theater here in LA. Joe Keery is playing Grounded in a filming fake biopic moment. Michael Esper is performing Grounded on a musical theater performance of Pavements songs. And a super group of young women, Bully, Soccer Mommy, Snail Mail, Speedy Ortiz, are playing Grounded at the ribbon cutting of this museum that Sean graciously attended, that you were seeing movies at the New York Film Festival during. They're all four cut together. And we have archival footage of the band playing Grounded, so 5. And that moment, which is 2 minutes in the movie, is like, that is 4 years of work to have like a bunch of different people playing the same song in different things filmed over 2 years. And that kind of effort is really interesting to me because it doesn't look hard. It just looks like you're cutting these things together. which is so easy to cut things together. But you have to build every one of those things from the ground up. Like, it's the simplest thing to watch and the hardest thing to make. And that challenge of process to me was like, I want to make a movie that way. But not for $100 million, for barely $1 million. And what if we did that? Like, could that be done? Why would that be done? I've never seen that. They all look like documentary moments, but there's not a single thing in there that I didn't, vehemently put my finger on the scale to create. Why not?
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Some
that's what I'm here
follow-up?
for.
Yeah.
Ask
Okay. No,
all
I
of
know.
them.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm asking Sean if I can step in
Yeah.
because, okay. So
I'm so excited to have you here I feel like I'm not used to being like at the back half of an episode now.
Mhm.
I haven't put out a movie since Her Smell, where we talked at South by Southwest for like maybe 20 minutes.
So you're ready.
I'm happy to be in the back half, and I'm happy to have you here. So jump in.
I want to ask about how you get
And
to.
you're both in the movie. We didn't even mention that yet.
Well, our names are.
Your names
Yeah.
are in the movie.
Yeah, spoiler.
Spoiler,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was
It's in the trailer.
You zoomed in.
Is it in the
and
trailer?
we
Yeah,
are in the
Oh,
trailer.
that's
and
wonderful.
my
I feel like-
sister-in-law, I told you, my sister-in-law saw it at Film Forum, and she was like, "Hey, I don't really know what Pavement is, but did you know you're in this trailer?"
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "I do, I do."
You
'cause
know
I
they're in the trailer because you
Yeah.
posted a screen grab of it when the trailer came out.
Did I do that?
Yeah.
My brain is shot.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
shot. Okay.
It's
Anyway,
okay.
that's lovely.
Okay. The broad version of this question is like where the hell did this come from?
Right.
But let's bring it back to the Dunkirk moment.
Okay.
So as you said, there is a point pretty early in the movie where you have 4 or 5 different things going on. You've got archival, you've got you've got the biopic,
Yeah.
you've got the musical,
Yeah.
you've got the museum.
Yeah. Those are my 3.
Yeah, so
Things that
those
we
are your
built.
3 timelines
Yeah. Plus
that you built.
archival plus the
So-
actual documentary of
This
their-
would be like if you in Dunkirk also had a component that was footage that John Ford shot during World War
Right.
II.
Yeah. Or,
Okay.
David Lean more
Right,
realistically.
right.
And yeah, like that would
Right.
be a
in
fine,
which we serve was blended together.
Right.
With,
Yeah.
with
And-
Dunkirk.
So it's many years of work and a lot of
Yeah.
creation to get to that
Mhm.
point. When did you and how did you decide that what you really needed to this, in addition to the rehearsal footage that you mentioned, was all 3 of these things, a biopic, a musical, and a museum, and that they all needed to come together? A la
immediately.
Dunkirk.
as soon as-
This was the idea.
Yeah, I was recently asked, and I was on like a phone interview, so I could just like look at my computer, and like my first document, which is May 2020, like which
Okay.
I must have done within a week of Danny Gabai, one of the movie's producers, just saying, "Would you be interested in this?" Malkmus seems not unlike a fictional character in an Alex movie. Put together some ideas, and the ideas changed, but the idea, one of the it was a bad biopic on paper. It was a museum on paper, and then it was a art film on paper. And I said it would be like art film like Edvard Munch, like a very austere silent movie about like an alternative musician, which is essentially Last Days. And that idea obviously didn't click, but I did later find that I texted Malkmus. I was like, "Have you seen this movie?" Asking him if he knew the film. One of my favorites, a film kind of in and out of circulation
Yeah.
physically, I feel, by the way. If we can-
Not very present these days
sidebar.
in the culture. Yeah.
I feel like it did come out a few years ago, but anyway, for whatever reason, like this just goes into the sort of like the movie junkie answer, which is if you love stuff, you just watch things all the time.
Yeah.
And we all, this. This is your life. This is your job. And to me, the whole question is like, I just consume. I
Mhm.
consume and I consume and I consume. And I consume fiction and I consume nonfiction, and I'm inspired by whatever. And the freedom to say I'm inspired by something irrelevant is very nice. Like usually you can't do that. You can't. I was saying to Sean last night, the Sean produced Alanis Morissette documentary
Mhm.
or EP, or I don't know what your credit is on these movies.
Yeah. EP.
Like that movie and the Tina Turner movie on HBO, I must have seen around the same time. And they both have those women going to a Broadway show of their music.
Right.
And it's just like in a film, you like nothing else you could do. You'd be like, that's inspiring to me. And it's not even that seeing it once was inspiring. Seeing it twice was inspiring. And I got very excited by that because like you get older and you get tired of what you do and you're just looking for something else. You're looking for the freedom to be like, I need to just smash the wall. I need to do something different because it's boring. And this opportunity, a multifaceted portrait of a extremely complex, multidimensional, brilliant figure like Malkmus, and the strange output of this band and their odd story over the years, I just instantly was like, there's so much freedom here. I can do whatever I want. Especially because the band said, don't make a traditional documentary. Don't make a movie about how great we are. We don't want to be in it at all or very much. So you need to think of other ways to tell the story. And sort of it should feel written. And with that, I was just like, so we'll have other people playing you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a whole jukebox musical where we hear the music that way. Let me film you as you rehearse for this tour. And that might be it. That might be all I need. And then come to the ribbon cutting. And that was kind of basically the promise I delivered on, because, you just look for permission to be like, I'm bored, but I'm inspired by many things. And there's a line in the movie where Malcolm is saying, like, what he says, like, inspired by like the Eagles for Range Life or classic rock for Silence Kid. I'm always inspired by things that sound like shit to me. I don't know why that is, but I still am. And it's the same thing. It's like, people are afraid to be inspired by something that you're like, well, this is bad. I'd like to do something exactly like this, but I want to contextualize it in a creative way where it's bad on purpose, but the process is what I'm making the movie about. But like, I'm trying to find my own truth in a form that is irrelevant to me. Or I'm trying to make a biopic, but like, we watch all these things. You guys have to, so you have no choice.
Yeah. You wonder why I make you do episodes about Marvel movies. I think Alex just summarized it very eloquently.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I
the
do
same
understand. Well, sort of. It's also because they are the most popular
They
movie
were.
format. They were. They no
And
longer
now
are.
now they
but,
are.
you
What
know.
is now?
Pavements. It's
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah.
Wait, can we go back to something you just
Second
mentioned?
highest per screen average of the weekend after Thunderbolts.
No kidding.
I mean, on one.
Yeah.
Literally, yes, but with
Yeah.
a mass an asterisk that would put the one in Thunderbolts to shame. Such a huge asterisk. But our producer was like, it's very funny that they had
Yeah.
like a 17,000 per screen average, and we had 13,000 on one
Right.
screen.
It was
Yeah.
4,200 screens
Yeah.
versus one. But you got something to be proud of. You did say, though, that so the band said that they would want it to feel written, which I don't think I had heard you say before. Why was that? Do you know?
I think Malcolm has felt that if you hired a documentary filmmaker, you'd get a documentary. And if you hired someone with a narrative approach, you would get something that was structured in a way that felt more like a piece.
Okay.
Like a piece of material. And that was just the first thing I was told. And I was like, I can approach this. I love writing. I love overwriting. And it was just a mysterious thing that the whole thing was just there. But it's also like, this is a perfect thing for Sean. Like, you use what you're supposed to do. You use your job, your opportunities to be like, I'm just going to like put all of my attention on this thing that I care about because I can. But no one else would let me do that. But I have created a world where I can do whatever I want. And I can be like, I'm putting my foot down and this is the thing we're all going to do. And for me, it's like, I love archival work. I love museum curation. I love thinking about the like stories told through objects. Most people do. This is not an original thing of mine, but I like love it so much I want to do it. And I was like, well, if I just create the conceit of a museum, I get to go through the archive. I get to wear white gloves and like touch priceless objects. And I get to fill in the gaps with a production designer, which I also love.
Right.
And I would love to be like a pop-up curator. And it was so fun to make a pop-up exhibit and create a physical experience for people to come, walk through a room, be together, look at things, take pictures, like figure out which corner we want to be like, that's our Instagram corner. Everyone's going to take pictures in front of this wall. Like, it was really fun to design a room that way as a physical space that is a movie set, but is also just like me getting to poke around the archives for 6 months. And I love musicals. I love theater. And I just have to create my own opportunity to like,
Right.
no one's going to say like, somebody saw your movie, they'd like you to make a musical. But I would like to do that, or I'd like to at least try
Do you think
it.
someone will see this and be like, would you like to do a real
Well, the only
musical?
thing that's happened is people saying we want to bring the musical back
Okay.
and do it for real, which could be great.
I want to ask about the performance in the musical, but maybe can you...
You must like musicals.
Well, it's interesting. I think that you and I probably have a similar... I appreciate them when they're well done, and I
Okay.
also see the absurdity in them, which
Mhm.
seems to be your take on
Right.
what's going on in the musical. But
Yeah.
explain to people how you where you wrote the musical portion of the
Yeah,
movie.
before you do, I just want to say, to me, this is the divining thing of the movie.
Yeah.
This is the thing that makes this
It's
such
very
a brilliant
The musical.
success. The
Yeah.
musical aspect of it,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
The
do you-
ideas, the way you think about the band, the way that you create documentary format, the way that you do, the way that you replicate some of your previous experience as a narrative filmmaker, like those are all things that I knew you could do. And I know, since I know you well, like I know that you have an affinity for those things. The musical aspect is genuinely inspired and right on that incredible line that I find so many musicals are of like, this is glorious and terrible at the same time.
Right.
Mhm.
And it feels like an active choice to make it
Right.
that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of the medium, but not of like the contemporary version of the mixtape musical, the jukebox musical. Not because I don't like them. I don't think I've ever seen one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I've missed all the ones that are even vaguely relevant that everyone in this movie has been a part of. I didn't go to the Sufjan Stevens musical that came out right after we made this, but by all accounts, it's identical, but not done as a joke, which, is good for the people who made it. But like, I'm very inspired by by that show's marketing material. And we've replicated that marketing material with our own marketing material of just like these kind of ham-fisted shots of people like sitting there talking about finding the story. Like we've replicated it.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it's so silly. And it cuts to these shots of like people dancing to Sufjan Stevens music, holding like a lit up ball. And I'm like, this is just what we did. But like we did it in 8 weeks for fun. And I like, no one's going to like give me a Tony for it, but I would take one. And like the thing about the band to me, which, like in declining order, like Chris, favorite,
Yeah.
Sean, familiar with, you, presumably unfamiliar, less familiar.
Less familiar.
Yeah. So it's like
familiar, but
it's a sliding
not.
scale. But to me, like name a band that you're like, I could really lock in on a documentary about this band. Just like someone that you're like, this would be my shit. And like if it was happening, I'd be like the expert with my arms
The
crossed.
Strokes would be your
The
answer.
Strokes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. A perfect answer. If you were like, I'm gonna ask 100 Strokes fans,
Mm-hmm.
give me like 5 qualities, Family Feud style, that really speak to what you love about the band. Those answers would be very similar.
Mm-hmm.
This just like beautiful retro analog feel, the style, the kind of detachment, this New York quality, like everyone would give the same answers. But Pavement are the opposite of that. If you ask 100 fans, someone is like, I love that Malcolmus is a brat, he's a slacker, he's funny, he doesn't take anything seriously, the whole thing just feels totally ironic. And then someone's like, he's a poet. Yasi has his lyrics tattooed on her. Like, this man has changed my life. It's sincerity. I cry when I listen to their music. They got me. And it's like, okay, so that's the same band.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the two completely opposed.
The paradox is true, though, in his
Yeah.
case.
It is.
That's part of what
that
makes him
is-
so
appeal of him.
flexible.
And that
yeah.
paradox was the paradox of structuring the movie with different segments, of smashing them together, and of creating one piece of the movie. And the biopic does this as well, where you're merging highbrow and lowbrow. You're merging irony and sincerity. You're merging real and fake as like a conceit of how we made it. And the musical is just that, where I was like, as I say in the movie, as the character directing the musical, I think this will work. B, I think it will be good. C, I don't think you could do this with many other bands. And D, like, why not? Like, just because I feel like some of these things that exist, musicals, biopics, I really feel like the decision-making process stopped and ended at why not? Like,
Yeah.
oh, why not? Like, that'd be fine. People would come to that. And I just was like, why not? And it seemed like a great, and originally when the movie wasn't Dunkirk, when the movie was Mishima, where I thought it'd be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, the musical would have been first. And the musical would
Okay,
have been
wow.
a sort of breezy, Billy Elliot inspired, small town, working class story about kids who just want to get out of their small town through music.
Okay.
And it would have been a way to give the first 30 minutes of the movie 30 straight minutes of music, 45 songs, just one after the other.
Right. Performed in Broadway style.
No,
by-
that would have been a movie.
Oh,
This was, of
oh.
course, when we thought we
Okay.
raised 3 times as much as we did.
Okay.
But then it became theater as a way of differentiating it. And then it became less literally the story of the band. And then it became a sort of Greek chorus throughout the movie. So like the whole idea was there immediately, but everything changed up until the edit. And I just thought it'd be fun to like I love, like, I got to go to work in Times Square for 2 months and sit.
I will say I was very moved by your performance sitting at a folding table
Yeah.
during rehearsals. That was like
It's me and Banderas and Baby Girl sitting at the folding table doing theater rehearsals in like the canon of recent nonsense. And that movie really gets one thing wrong, which is after the show opens, he's still in the theater at the table.
Mhm.
And I've learned like that would never happen. When the show's open, the director's retired and the stage manager runs the show. And that show opens, they go to opening night. And then like weeks later, he's still showing up and sitting at the lighting console, which is bogus.
Huh.
An expert like me has learned from doing this once as a joke. But I sat at the table.
Yeah.
And, I contributed, but I wrote the musical, which is sung through, no dialogue, at my residency on Bergman Island, which was a great thing I did after seeing the film, which I assume you both.
Yeah, of course.
You probably like the movie.
Have you,
both love the
speaking
movie.
of Bergman Island and jukebox musicals, have you seen Mamma Mia?
No, I've never seen it.
Wow. Okay. Well,
like, I feel like-
there's a climactic ABBA song used in both films. Very movingly.
Yeah.
I feel like that maybe is your Pavements. Like you should
Yeah,
deconstruct Mamma Mia and then rebuild
Yeah.
it through different mediums.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll say this of being on Bergman Island that we went, there's like, it's called Foro.
Far,
And,
yeah. People may not know what it is. You should explain like what it actually is.
The actual island or the movie?
Yeah, well, the
Sure.
island, but the movie, or people could just go watch the
So
movie.
Ingmar
but-
Bergman just moved to some island off the coast of an island called Visby, which is off the coast of Sweden. So it's an island off the coast of an island. I think the island of Foro is like maybe the size of Silver Lake.
Mm.
It's
Okay.
like preposterously small. And it feels like you've left the planet Earth. He filmed 4 or 5 movies there, notably Persona and Shame, parts of Scenes from a Marriage. Mia Hansen-Løve makes the film Bergman Island. I saw it like on a Thursday, applied for the residency on a Monday, was there the following summer. And, I was there for 3 weeks. And you go to Bergman's house to work, which is seen in the film. Actually, there's an important thing coming here for you that you'll be excited by. And it's at the end of the movie when Vicky Krieps goes to like his house, which is presented as like this sanctum. And you just go to his house and work. And his house is so quiet. I had to open a window because I was getting a migraine. It was so quiet. Like I've just never been somewhere that's that hermetically removed from civilization. And it's on the beach, it's on the rocks. And I had to open a window so I could hear the ocean because I was like, I feel like I'm in a deprivation chamber. And that's where he worked. And there's no Wi-Fi. So I downloaded 40 Pavement songs and I crafted this structure based on the chronological working of their discography of the 40-ish songs I had chosen. And looking at the lyrics of like, oh, this lyrical passage suggests this guy's leaving a small town. They have a song called All My Friends. Everyone's going out tonight. Tonight, all my friends are strangers. And I'm like, that's a great song to show that this guy is moving away from the people he's come up with and he's leaving. There's not a second of that in the movie, but it was very crucial in like the story of the musical. And it just kind of got built from that. And this is all a way of saying like, this is 20 minutes of the movie. And like, I worked on it for a year. And that's insane. That's very silly.
And you like did rehearsals and you filmed rehearsals.
Yeah,
and
we
then
did
built a
auditions.
set.
We filmed the audition scene. Like I wanted the chorus line, all that jazz, like New York, creaky wooden floors, audition scene. You could script that scene and hire actors to do it, or you could just like put out a casting call and hang up signs saying you're being filmed. And we got half of our cast from that open call. And we got a lot of people being like, is this a prank? What am I doing here? But it's a good scene. And I just wanted that scene in the movie. That's where I sit hard at that table.
Yeah, it's really
But, I had to pay attention.
pensive. Yeah.
I had to like watch what
You're
everyone
looking
was
for
doing.
something. You're not sure if you're going to find it. You're communicating all of that.
Well, really, Angela Trimber, who was the choreographer and ultimately co-director, I was just like, I'm not going to tell you who to cast. You cast who you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
We had Michael Esper, Zoe Lister-Jones, and Katherine Gallagher. So for the ensemble, I was like, you guys just need mercenary dancers. Cast whoever you want. And it was fine. But yeah, we did a lot of work for something that's like inscrutable in the movie. But to me, that's like, isn't that part of the fun? Like, isn't working more fun than having worked?
I mean,
if you're doing something cool.
Yeah, if you're doing it on your own terms and your
Yeah.
own ideas. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not that I wanted the musical to be over.
She said with sorrow in her voice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think not everyone like it's like because you, as you said, you get to do exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
You are just making this crazy thing, and everyone's going for it with you.
Yes, it's I mean, the Synecdoche, New York comparison comes up, a movie I abhor, but I respect the comparison. And
that's the Alex I know. Is that just popped out? That was not press tour Alex.
I respect the comparison. Well, we're off the record now. I think. I respect the comparison, and I get it. And what I respect is what I wanted out of that movie. But anyway, so the Bergman thing. So I'm in his house. I'm writing the musical, and then we rewatched Bergman Island when we were there. We were staying in the house where the characters stayed, and the house where some scenes from a Marriage were shot.
That's a Russian nesting doll right there.
In his house, the scene with her and what's the guy's name? The Anders Danielson Lee. They're like in his living room, and then they walk, and then they're in his library, but they skip a room in the middle, which is Bergman's video room.
Oh my God, your face.
Where he has
are his videos
I
in there?
counted like 2,500 videotapes. Organized alphabetically and sort of by section, because he has a lot of theater, and there's like a theater section. And everyone there's
alphabetically by title? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then within the theater section, that's alphabetical, and there seem to be like subsections of different countries. But then, this legend, he's so cold to his children and this and that. And behind the door is an entire shelf of children's movies. 20 Swedish Pippi Longstocking films.
Okay.
And I'm like, we couldn't have been that cold if he had like 100 tapes for his grandchildren to come watch.
Or, as you know, maybe he was just trying to avoid spending time with them by putting something on the television.
Yeah, but it's far away. Like, you don't bring your grandkids there and then...
It's a good point.
It's not like they stopped by.
And there's nowhere else to go.
It's the ends of the earth.
Sure, but once you're there, you got to have 20 stockings. Yeah.
And, but, so like the screening room, as seen in the film, was right in front of our house, which is not where his house was. It's like in front of his other house.
Okay.
Kind of like his office house.
I don't think I knew that you had done that. I knew a lot of what was going on during the production of the film, but when I visited the museum, which is just, again, another ingenious stroke of the movie, I don't think I understood what was happening.
No.
I thought it was just a day's event that was sort of a celebration oriented around the production of the film, not that it was an intrinsic part of the design of the movie.
Right.
And did you even explain? Maybe you did.
I don't know. At the time, I wanted to get you on camera because I wanted to have like interviews with experts and have you talk about music and movies. And we just ended up not doing that because there was too much going on. It was intrinsic. And we didn't announce that on Saturday there'll be 4 bands playing and the guys will be there. The reason there's 800 people in the room is because we all told our friends to come. The label brought 200 people. The band's families came.
It was a scene.
I remember
it was a rainy day and it was a scene.
We really stacked the room.
Yeah.
But people who just happened to be like, oh, I'll go to that on Saturday, we're like, what on earth is going on? Like, why is the band here? Why are all these bands playing? But it was just filmmaking in public, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because that is documentary filmmaking. But the entire conceit was like, I spent 9 months curating this room, and we spent a month production designing it, custom building vitrines to hold zines and Xeroxes of zines that we couldn't find, and like fakery on top of other stuff. And I noticed that Pavement shirts were $300, $400, $500 on Depop and Grailed. So we just made an entire wall of fake t-shirts where it's, if they were real, that'd be like $10,000 worth of shirts.
Right.
But instead that's like $1,000 worth of production design. And they were all aged to look very old. And it's authentic, but that's, if you take a picture in front of it and you have a good time, what does it matter that we made that last week and it's not from 1994? Like, that's not what it's about. But it was intrinsic. And because like another movie, a movie I would watch, a movie you might even executive produce, you have the ephemera, you just shoot it against black felt. That's fine. I'll look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And another movie would interview Sophie Allison from Soccer Mommy and have her talk about her love of the band. But that's the opposite. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take the ephemera and put it in front of everybody, have the band look at it on camera for the first time in decades, and have the musicians not just speak, but just sing their 3 favorite songs. But in the movie, every one of these younger artists, they get 2 songs, and you hear each one for 40 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean we didn't fly these bands in from all over the country. There's an entire other song everyone played that I couldn't even tell you right now because I forget. Because it's not in the movie. I don't remember what the 3rd song she played was.
I don't know. I definitely stayed for Snail Mail and Bully, I think, when I was there. And it was just a good show.
It looked fun.
It was just a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show. And some of the artists requested to play the song a second time, which obviously confused people who had no idea what was going on.
Sure.
And we filmed the ribbon cutting twice
Mm.
Right.
because we had the ribbons. The ribbon was a prop, and we filmed it once from the front and once from the back. And the same speech. And of course, everyone in the room was like, why are they doing this a second time? Like,
Steve really did it with gusto in the film, I gotta
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
One of his
He's
most
having fun.
spirited moments in
he's
that.
having some fun.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
shot of him lifting up the scissors was filmed by Joshua Weinstein, who made the film Menashe.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
there shooting that for us that day.
Nice.
Had a real murderer's row of like fiction, nonfiction people there.
So the people who just show up are like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Don't really know that we have a film.
And the musical.
So
And-
they show up for the audition. Once they're cast,
Yeah.
explain that. And then there is a climactic performance
Yeah,
of the musical
We performed it.
with an audience.
We performed it for an audience 3 times.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And privately just for cameras once.
Okay.
Or sort of once with like, we need to do that one again. Like, people got cast in the show. None of the ensemble had heard of the band. One girl, Sophie, long brown hair, is like a real indie rock fan. She knew the band. No one else had ever heard them or heard of them. And ultimately we cut all the scenes of me explaining the band to them and, just being like, this is the vibe, like imperfection is fine, embrace it. Sloppiness is a virtue. You can, musical theaters don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hear it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what they love. You're just giving these people a shot. These people who go to an open audition and then suddenly they get cast in a role that's an official Actors Equity stamped production
Mm-hmm.
on a stage in New York. Like, that's legit. It's like being an actor who just wanders in and ends up like being a corpse on Law and Order. Like, that's what you want. That's what you moved to New York
Right.
for. So they're having a blast and they're giving it their all. They don't care about the cameras. Like, I learned very quickly, these people, these performers, these 8 members of the cast, and ultimately even Zoe, Michael, and Catherine as the leads, they're excited to be in a movie. And they know we're filming, but they don't really care. Because keeping in mind, like, that was 3 years ago. Like, I couldn't explain the movie.
Right.
I could just be like, it's this tapestry of a bunch of bullshit of an artist you have no context for.
Right.
That means nothing to you. And this is going to be interwoven. And everyone's like, I stopped listening to you while you were explaining this because we're on the clock and I need to like do my routine. I need to work on these bizarre lyrics. I need to figure out this choreography.
Mm-hmm.
Film us all you want. Like, I genuinely don't know or care. And certainly once we're on the stage, because we then did a week at our theater of building the sets, doing tech rehearsal. Certainly when we're in there, they're like, I so don't care that you're filming. Like, the filming is so immaterial to my creative process of doing this.
Right.
And that's really nice to have your performers in a movie be like, I don't even want to think about the movie that you're making. Instead of like, I'm hyper fixated on the movie that you're making. I only care about the shot, the image, my line. Can I try that again? It's amazing to be like, I've scripted all of this. You're all in this bubble, this Bergman-esque bubble of performance and reality. And you just don't care. Like, you're just living, like, then when I saw like something like Zone of Interest, and I was like, why is this movie filmed this way? Like, what do these shots look like? And it's like, oh, they just had cameras all over the house and the actors didn't know. And I'm like, see, that's incredible. Like, that's just an idea of someone being like, what if?
Yeah, we surveilled this
Right.
family.
What if?
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
if I just did this thing that's
Yeah.
incredibly obvious? I'm not inventing technology. I'm not like, remaking the wheel. But it's just like, what if we just did it this way? Make a virtue of deficiencies, as Malcolm says in the movie, like, just do something. Like, we don't have the money to do so much. So why don't we just we don't have the money to, you see a scene in a movie where someone goes to see a play. End of Something's Got to Give, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
You have to pay all those people to sit in the
Right.
room until AI replaces the work of SAG actors, as is obviously threatened by the special effects industry. But we had people pay us to be in the movie because we put on a show for them.
Mhm.
They
Right.
bought a ticket. They were cheap. This
So
ticket
yeah, how are you publicizing it?
it was Pavements Instagram and Matter's Instagram, and it sold out in 10 minutes.
Wow.
There was just like 2 workshop performances, Friday and Saturday, $30. Come on. And people were like, what is this? I'm going. And that was it. And they were in the movie. And the reality of what was happening was very vague to people. We have cameras everywhere, which is either relevant or not. Some people were like, something's up. Some people were like, I recognize that guy. He's a filmmaker. He's like running around, like moving, like talking about the cameras. There must be something going on here. But we did the museum and the musical without announcing that there was a movie. So there's no reason to be like, what's up?
Right.
It's more just like people walked into the museum who I vaguely knew, and I was just sitting at a table because we had 3 very easy days at the museum, and then 1 very complicated day. And the other days I was at a table, tea, laptop. People would walk in and be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we're making a movie right now." It's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Oh, well, that guy over there talking to those people, that's my friend. He's an actor. He's playing a curator. And that other guy is filming them." And they're all mic'd and there's signs up. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I just hired him to play this character. He's over there doing his own thing." None of that ended up in the thing. But this guy, Jay, who plays Peter Delfino, the curator of the museum, is a diehard fan. And we were like, "Yeah, just come 6 hours a day, walk around, same costume, same wardrobe. And just everyone who comes in, introduce yourself as Peter Delfino, curator. Just talk to people and just like get their stories about the band."
Mm-hmm.
And then he's the one presenting the ribbon cutting. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm directing the movie, but I'm like mostly just kind of focused on like the cup of tea and, you know, I mean, I left the museum to go record the big picture. It's not like I had to work that hard. I just left for a couple of hours and then came back. So it's not like I was, actually doing anything. But I had done work for months and months. And that's like kind of an amazing way to work.
Yeah.
Like you could just hit record and leave.
How did you afford to get Griffin Newman in the movie?
It's a great question. Blackmail.
Yeah.
Severe blackmail.
Very effective.
The good Griffin story is like, we wrapped the movie, the biopic, which features Joe Keery as Malcolmus, Nat Wolff as Spiral Stairs, Fred Heckinger as Bob, Logan Miller as Mark Eibold, and then Griffin as Steve West, the drummer. And Steve West now is like a burly man, big guy, beard. He's a Mason. But at the time, he was like kind of a scrawny, gingery guy.
Mm-hmm.
We all went out for pizza when we wrapped. I left to go get something or go to the bathroom, and I come back and Griffin's sitting there with the whole cast. And as I sit down, he's going, "So the way Warren Beatty renews the rights to Dick Tracy every 10 years is by making these bizarre little pieces of ephemera."
He was
in order
blank checking at the table?
He just like somehow in the 5 minutes I was gone, he just immediately was like, "I need to lock these guys in on the right situation of Dick Tracy." So he's true to himself, and
That's beautiful.
God bless.
Griffin fans will be happy to know he was, as our producer said, the latest. He's like, "This guy's the latest one every day. He's your friend. Why is he the only one who's not on time?" It's like, Joe's on time, Heidecker's on time, Schwartzman's on time. This guy's your buddy. Why is he the only one we're waiting for? And I was like, it's the scorpion and the frog. Like he just has to go down. But he was a very welcome presence.
One last thing about the movie. So this is like a very daring exercise. Feels as much as like a creative expulsion of something as it is like a intellectual exercise. Is any part of it like an audition for a kind of thing you would like to do in the future? Because it is so many different kinds of things.
Yeah, what could that even be?
I don't know.
You look like Ty West, he said, "No, you're not going to come back from Venice and have somebody say, 'Congratulations on your experimental documentary. Here's a job.'" And he was right.
Yeah, you're getting great press though.
Yeah.
And I think that this band resonates with so many people who potentially have power to help you make something.
No.
No? You don't
The
think
band
so?
does? No.
Just the people who are fans of the band.
No.
No?
Gen X has no power and no money.
Oh,
We
interesting.
learned
Yeah.
Explore that.
We learned while fundraising this movie for 2 years.
It's tough.
Wow.
This is why we have so much baby boomer content. They have the money.
What about elder millennials?
That's
Are we
why
more powerful?
That is why the Sufjan musical was on Broadway and the Pavement musical was a joke.
That's tough.
That's great.
Yeah.
Though. It's great for us. What
Is
will
it?
we do
I guess
together?
so.
Yeah. How
Is
do we
it?
leverage this moment?
No, we don't.
We skip Gen X. That's fine. It's our
Yeah.
time.
No, it's not.
That's what Minecraft tells us. It's our time.
Is this true?
I think so. I'm dead serious. This is my big theory.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, but we're using it for Sufjan. That's the problem.
I always point to Seth Rogen. I'm like, Seth Rogen is the one who shows us the way. He was the one who was like, he got taught by one Gen X guy, Judd Apatow, how to make your own industry. And now he like has a tremendous amount of power. He has his own weed business. He produces television shows and movies.
Makes ceramics.
He's younger than us. Like, and he
Hey,
has a kind of, he's younger than me.
I was like,
He has an entrepreneurial
relax.
state of
I don't know
mind.
how old he is.
I think he's 41.
So he's in between.
He's in between.
Yeah.
I see.
And I had my
Yeah.
famous like meltdown / celebration of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie where I was like,
Right.
what the fuck is this shit? Like they're repeating me at 9 years old to me at 41 years old,
Mhm.
but it worked.
Yeah.
So what can we do together? How can we make
Nothing.
hay of this?
There's no hay.
Okay.
We tried to raise money for this movie for a year.
But this movie's about guys in their 50s. So I'm talking about what about our 40s? That's the thing I'm
But who
pointing
is
to.
that? The Strokes?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's capital.
But
in
you're
that.
only thinking of music. I'm like, what else? What in the world at large, you know?
You're saying like
What is the ultimate millennial drama that Alex Ross Perry can author.
I don't even know what those words mean. The millennial drama.
Think about it.
But what is that?
How can you be the Bergman of your time?
Yeah.
How can you reflect?
But nobody wants that anymore.
I wonder.
The seriousness of that kind of storytelling is so not interesting to people of a certain age.
That's true. That's true.
And I know this because the Broadway show I did see around this time was Stereophonic, which was wonderful. And I love Fleetwood Mac. Like, this is a band I like.
Yeah.
And I know the story as well as anybody. And this is baby boomer crack, this show. And I was so into it. It was so beautiful. The staging, I think it's coming here. If it comes here, you should 100%
Well,
see
Sean
it.
doesn't like Fleetwood Mac.
No,
but-
that's not true. I just think they're overrated.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this, I mean, this is fun. It's not literally Fleetwood Mac, but
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
but you like
That
that
style
kind,
of music.
you like that era.
Yeah. I do.
You could hang for a 3-hour play about a band. I mean, Almost Famous. Like you would
Yeah,
watch,
yeah.
you would watch this play
Totally.
for 3 hours, and it is remarkable. But that's again, I was like saying to during the intermission, I'm like, it's just so funny. Like this baby boomer shit just will never go away. And this guy turns around, like big white beard, like a tie-dyed bucket hat. And he was like, did you just say, like, it's funny. I was thinking about this show during the first half, like baby boomer art. Like, yeah, that's really what this is. And I was like, dude, look at yourself. Like, I just blew your mind with that. Like, what are we talking? Like, this is so obvious to me, like why you would be here, like grooving on these like 70s music narratives for, the 50th straight year. But stuff like that isn't like, the fan base of the band, they're not putting the money into the culture. Where that whole generation is hamstrung by the fact that the baby boomers still have the power to tell their own
and
stories.
the money and
It's true.
and
It's true.
yeah.
Can I pitch a
they get
theory to you
squeezed out.
that I just shared with somebody on another podcast?
Oh, great.
Um,
We love your secondhand.
I don't know if this will
theories.
be used, but it occurred to me kind of in mid conversation, and it's related to what we're talking about, which is we were talking through like why the rep theater culture is doing so well, like at least in big cities in America right now, and how a lot of younger people are showing up for older movies and they're building these relationships to like Heat and Thief and you know movies that came out 20, 30, 40 years ago. And to me, I started paralleling it to sitting in the car with my dad and the onset of classic rock radio. And like classic rock radio becoming a format and arguably like a key format in the sustainability of FM radio through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And how that music just got bled into our personal cultural lifestyle as adolescents. And then we came to accept the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac. These bands mattered to us, even though they had all broken up by the time we were born, basically.
Well, except for those of us that made our own choice and realized Kiss was the ultimate from that era.
Well, but that's your version of that. But the fact that music was sustainable, whereas like Perry Como was not sustainable to my dad, even though his parents loved Perry Como. So
well, my dad worked his whole career for classic rock radio, 102.9 Philadelphia's.
See, it did
found
come
a
out.
way into it.
Yeah.
Philadelphia's Magic, and their TV commercials were Fleetwood Mac, Bruce Springsteen, all that stuff, and that was that was it growing up. And this was 1993. That music was 20 years old. At the time, and it was classic rock to me. It was classic rock to that generation. The problem is that, like, to get analytical here, I agree that this movie culture thing is happening. The weird thing is that my movie culture of what I was hooked on when I was going to the movies 7 days a week, when I was 20 through 30, that was all about discovery. All we cared about, all that was being given to us was things that you've never seen before.
You mean like going to Film Forum?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would go to Film Forum and see 35 different Otto Preminger films.
Yeah.
Because that was a full retrospective and I had seen 4 and I needed to see every single one. That is not what programming is anymore.
It's not.
And,
That's true.
and if that happens, it doesn't have the numbers you're describing.
There are strains of it in Los Angeles. Like the Cinematheque, the American Cinematheque will do
Of course.
a month-long sustained program
These
that
happen.
is just one film.
And this happens in New York as well. And people do go. But what you're describing, the boom, is not like people are showing up for Daisy Kenyon and it's sold out. It's more like people are showing up for Thief. And it's like, well, to me, that's just watching cable. Like, I don't need to go to the movies to see the movie I've seen. I always wanted to go to be like,
It's not passive.
I know it's not.
It's definitely not passive.
It's a huge activity.
To me, though, there's a split in the demographics because there are always somewhere between 30 and 50% of the audience is like, just looks like Chris. And they're just so pumped to see Thief for the 300th time. But the other half has never seen it. And I know because when I go to Vidiots all the time, Maggie always asks people, raise your hand if you've never been to Vidiots or seen this movie before. And half the people raise their hands. And then they just haven't seen Thief. So they are discovering it. It's just not at that like sustained cinephilic academic approach to movies. It is more like an eventized emotional exploration.
Which I'm all in favor of. I'm all in favor of it seeming less exclusive.
Yeah.
But to this point, like, what's one of the most consistently screened movies? Probably doesn't go 2 weeks without screening in New York or LA. Possession. But back in the day, it was the complete Zulawski.
Yeah.
We were seeing Shaman and On the Silver Globe and, what's the other one with the great long title? Like,
I don't know.
Color, like love is the most beautiful thing. Love. It's like, it wasn't about possession. That was the least relevant part of the Zulawski series. It was about these ones that had never played.
Yeah.
That the prints didn't have subtitles. And it's just different. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's like it's going pop. It is, which is good.
Which is the same thing that we're talking about with the legacy of, if this movie is like about one thing other than a band, to me, it's like, it's about the way that these legacies, histories, consumption, media, narratives change, get codified, get packaged, get sold. That's what the entire biopic portion of this movie is about, which we've not really talked about, even though that's where we throw in a headline of you guys doing an episode on Joe Keery, which is plausible in that if an actor was being tipped for like, this is his moment,
right?
You would be like, we need to talk about this because this is a thing.
But in an ironic, unironic, post-meta point of view, when I was watching the movie again yesterday, I was like, Joe Keery is phenomenal in this movie.
He's really,
and it really beautifully walks that line between, I know that I'm satirizing, but I'm also emotionally connected to this performance.
Yeah.
And so you
He's
kind of did do the thing that you were making
he's
fun
just the
of
real
midstream.
deal. Like he's completely the
he's
real
awesome.
deal. I mean, I know you love Free Guy, which I guess he's in. I've never seen it.
It's a piece of garbage,
He was
but
in it?
I'm glad he did well.
I only know he's in it because he's in the trailer.
He works at the video game company, I believe.
Sure. Yeah.
In the trailer, there's a shot where he has his feet up on a desk and he goes like this.
Okay.
That's all I know about his performance in the movie.
I mean, all respect to him. Free Guy sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. He's never mentioned it except in passing when he mentioned knowing Jodie Comer.
Free Guy is my Synecdoche, New
must be
York,
it.
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
I get what it was trying to do, and I respect that, but it's terrible.
Yeah. But that kind of like, cultural snake eating its own tail is just interesting to me. And as I'm sure we prepare, I realized this last night, wrapping up with you and Chris, but like, Amanda, what would you say the odds are that 6 months from now, Sean and Chris admit that they cried during the Bruce Springsteen biopic? Like 2-1?
I was pretty sus of it when I saw the trailer.
This is the thing, is that Sean's heart is like too protected, which is like his own version of, like this moment is coming for him and he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like the most fascinating podcast of 2024, in my opinion, was Sean, Chris, and Mallory talking about A Complete Unknown.
Sure.
And parsing through your feelings and like, which in many ways is the movie that you're parodying.
Yeah.
In Pavements, like big time. I mean, there are like multiple Timmy with a guitar just being like, oh my God, now he's watching like now he's writing Blowing in the Wind after banging Joan Baez.
Yeah, I mean, just like,
but also, sorry.
And we hadn't seen it. We hadn't seen the movie.
It was a good scene. But
in Complete Unknown is a good scene, you're saying.
Well,
you like that scene.
I like that scene. Yeah. Last night during the Q&A, you were making fun of, that scene. And I think you do a perfect
that scene in every movie. The musician sits down and writes.
But there is, and I can be honest about it. And I think the problem with Sean is like, maybe he can't be honest about it.
It's not true.
Or there's something like, it's stupid.
Hack work.
And
it is not how creativity works.
It's so stupid. But when they do it right, and then I'm like, oh my God, they're playing,
all
they're
you're responding
this.
to is hearing something that you know that touches you.
Yeah,
but that's not
you
cinematic.
had that watching the Bob Dylan movie, and you'll have it during the Springsteen movie. And then you're gonna,
the Bruce Springsteen movie is a tough one because I'm honestly not. I don't dislike Bruce Springsteen, but I'm not like a Bruce Springsteen disciple.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a person that like influenced my adolescence the way that Bob Dylan did. So I don't come to the table with as much on the line for that one.
Okay.
It also
so maybe the odds are like 4-1 that you and Chris are going to be like, look, man, I'm not a disciple,
Chris
but
might
not
cry.
only will Chris cry. Nebraska is Chris's favorite album.
Okay.
So the movie is about the writing and production.
I'm just
of
picturing
Nebraska.
the two of you watching that movie, and it's like the last scene of We Own the Night, and you guys are Joaquin and Wahlberg just holding each other, being like they're just crying, and you're just like, I love you, man. It's like I love you too.
No, that was us at the end of Nosferatu. You know,
God, that's depressing. It's possibly the saddest thing I've heard in a long time. I just feel like that's coming for us. Like I watched the entire Bob Marley movie on someone else's seat on the plane last year.
Weird movie.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the same thing. But it's like, what was the press around that movie that I saw in the New York Times? Here's how they made the wig.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that the most, like, here's the press around Pavements in the New York Times. Here's how they made the movie. And it's like, don't we love stuff enough to be like, I don't care about the wig. I don't care how long this guy learned how to play the harmonica to play famous troubadour Bob Dylan. Like, how's the movie? What is the movie about? Like, and I reread the New York Times article from 15 years ago about I'm Not There. It's such a good article. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. New Yorker. The New Yorker?
No, it was the New York Times.
Okay.
It must have been like a
Was it
Sunday
the Times?
magazine.
Okay.
It's such a long
Because
article.
it was a long Todd Haynes piece. I thought it was the New
Maybe.
Yorker.
This was a New York Times article. Where his discussion of being told to approach Dylan was so exactly the same as how I was told to approach Malcolm. Don't use the word genius. Don't use this. Don't say that. And I'm just like, this is what, I love about the project of what you guys are always doing is like, what do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the thing? Or do we want to talk about like the facetious quality of what this thing is made for?
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys were just like analyzing box office and marketing, that would be boring. But what I like is like, can't we talk about the thing? Like, isn't the creative process more valuable than the set dressing of the dreadlocks or of the prosthetics? Isn't there more to this than that?
I always think that stuff is worthy of an aside. And so in this format, it's easy for us to say, for 1 minute, we can talk about the costumes, but we don't need to hyper focus. And that's like also about the erosion of the media economy around culture, which is a much longer conversation.
And that's what the movies, that's what the range life stuff is about. It's about the erosion of all that. And obviously it's, Joe looks enough like Malcolmus that there is no wig needed. There is no, he's a great musician. There is no training needed, but like.
Were the clothes really on loan? That was a joke.
Oh, from the mud clothes?
Or was that a joke? Not the mud clothes, but throughout the wardrobe.
Oh, no. The thing that Steve West says about the mud clothes is that the ones at the museum that are still dirty from are, and one of my biggest regrets is that I wrote on the placard on loan from the band members. And the day I printed it, I was like, I should say on loan from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I was pretty bummed at my failure on that one.
You're still thinking of gags from the movie.
Yeah, I know. There's a couple other things that I thought of subsequently. And some of which, like, including you guys, could be fixed in the edit. But no, none of that. I mean...
Could they get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
You tell me.
I'm a voter.
Yeah, you're a voter. Have they ever been on the ballot?
I think were they not?
There's no way.
I feel like recently they might have been.
Let me ask this. Has an independent band ever been on the ballot?
No, that's a very interesting
Literally a band that is not affiliated with a major label at all.
Because I don't know, but Matador is so close. I mean, Matador is the A24 of independent labels. It is like, it is so...
Is or was?
At least was. In Pavement's heyday, for sure. So I
don't have my phone, or we just pull up your Instagram and look at the ballots.
I know.
It just seems like one of those things...
They do it differently. If they do it online now, they no longer give you the paper ballot.
That's sad.
It seems like one of those things that, much like the way movies are, awards are bought and sold, and you're told by Sean's return from Telluride, here's the movies you have to deal with for the next 4 months. It just seems like one of those things that you're like, actually, like, to even get towards the ballot requires like a corporate investment.
It doesn't feel that way. I don't know people
Are
on
there
the
ever
committee,
like
so I'm
that
not
level
sure.
of critics' favorite bands that are like numerically irrelevant in the ecosystem of music history?
Well, there's sort of like the old timers
essential.
list, though, that people like 30, 40 years after their original contention for the Hall of Fame, they then get re-added. They'll be like, oh, we forgot like the Shirelles, so now we got to add the Shirelles.
MC5, maybe.
Yeah, MC5 is a good example of that, yeah. So I could see them getting in once all of the baby boomers have died and Gen X is in their 70s.
Okay.
And then
what a day that will be. People are
like one day until
the last
then the
World
Gen
War
X
II veteran is gone.
Right.
I'm like, I'm just waiting for the last baby boomer to go. I mean, I would welcome a list of what 90s bands are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Nirvana, obviously. I would welcome.
Yeah. Did Beastie Boys make it?
You're the voter.
Did Tribe Called Quest?
I mean, I should have put them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the movie, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
I think they could get there. Anyhow, we got to wrap up soon. But before we do it, like, you like are an observer of movie culture. In addition to being a filmmaker, you always have takes. Like, you always have takes on the business.
Sure. Give us the takes.
What are you holding on to? What do you want to get out?
I mean, we could just read the text thread.
We do. The epic news and deals text.
Nothing publicly viable. I mean, it just kind of feels, I feel bad saying this to you guys. This is like telling a kid there's no Santa Claus, but it's just like, it feels like it's over. I don't know. Like, it just feels oppressive. It feels bad. Because creativity is not valued in the ecosystem in the way that I think it should be. I don't really know what I'm saying with that, but it just feels like when you spiral, I'm like, finally some truth. And then a week later, you're like, just kidding, we're back.
Minecraft!
Oh no, like someone put something in Sean's water. He's like all happy again. I just feel like the studio stuff is just like, it just feels over.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's beacons of hope.
Such as?
Well, like when something cool is successful.
Okay.
Like Sean, I mean, I don't think I go 24 hours without getting a text from Sean about Sinners' box office.
Okay. Yeah, you really are. That's true.
It's just like, guys, have you seen these Wednesday numbers? It's like,
You reveal too much.
Yeah.
Amanda doesn't have to hear about those things anymore because I can just share them with you and and David.
You
and
still
Griffin.
text them.
Yeah.
You
Not
send
as
some
much
of
as I
them.
used
Yeah,
to.
not as much.
But I get no response from you, and I know I can get some engagement over here.
Well, it's when you send it to me and Chris, and I'm like, well, Chris can deal with this like contextless screenshot of the top 10 Netflix movies that you sent me at like Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Sean does the work when he's when he's never off the clock.
Well, you don't send those to me either. You just send me memes.
Yeah,
I do, but they're good memes.
So whenever I make a Sean meme on the group chat, I send it to you with no context.
Yes, exactly.
So you don't understand what led
but
up.
I have the context of having lived through the event that inspired the memes, so I can kind of get
like
it.
with no understanding of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like to answer the question somewhat seriously, like what worries me as a vaguely impartial participant.
You're not, but okay.
Is like it's becoming the same problem with American politics, where there's two parties and nobody thinks that they actually represent the best of what people want. And the problem is that like the so-called independent hope of the last decade seems like all those companies are upgrading themselves and getting out of the business of what they've built, which is obviously a huge problem because it creates a hole in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
This movie's being released by Utopia, a company I think does a lot of good work. After A24 and Neon, I don't know what people would say is third in the ecosystem of independent film distribution, in the way that there is no third in political parties.
Well, I mean,
everybody in America knows that's a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
It's a huge disaster to be like, there's bad and there's less bad. And then there's 45% of nothing. And then there's like some other options you can use. And if the parties get too big and they don't speak to the interests of the people that supported them, I'm talking about movies now.
Mm-hmm.
If the companies get too big and they don't speak to the interests of people who supported them, then who's left? Because they've ruined the ecosystem.
It's possible that it can't be rebuilt. And I don't mean to be like a mouthpiece for studio executives, but the impression that I've gotten in the last 2 years or so is that they realized that they kind of fucked it and that they're trying in some ways to de-IP and to become less reliant on the thing that got everybody so fat over the previous 25 years. Whether or not they can actually accomplish it, I don't know. I do think whatever is happening at Warner Brothers and Universal, those are two companies that are trying to basically turn back to 1990s, 80s, 70s, where it's like it's filmmaker focused, it's original stuff. I don't know if that's actually going to be sustainable at the scale that we're used to. And they're not going to stop making IP movies. That's not what I'm suggesting. But there's at least an awareness that the bloat of 2002 through 2019 was never sustainable, and the international money was never sustainable. So whether or not studio system can be fixed, I don't know. You're right, though, that A24 and Neon are like, we could and probably will try to get bigger. And that takes a lot of independent movies off the board.
What was like maybe focus, but like one of those companies that like the movies just got bigger and bigger and then they just kind of like toppled and went away. You know, like a Paramount, like those companies just end up getting too big for their britches. Mm-hmm. And they realize they're outspending their resources and they're not meeting market demands. And like, this is the movie, like speaking of this movie, like we all just want it to be 1997, right? Like we want it to, the thing that just doesn't exist. And this minted all of your heroes. Virgin Suicides to Lost in Translation, Bottle Rocket to Rushmore to Royal Tenenbaums, Heart 8 to Boogie. What we don't have is like, nobody saw your movie. It's kind of a disaster. Critics liked it. Here's 15 times the amount of money. Mm-hmm. Try again. And then everyone's like, generational masterpiece. Like, here, not a lot of money. All the
you're
things,
right.
All the things
you're right.
That is the exact kind of searing insight that you always bring.
All the things I just said, you know, those are modest swings.
Yeah.
And the success, the dividends on those movies will last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just like, mean, what does Rushmore cost? $10 million? What's Royal Tenenbaums? 20? Like, these movies will last until the end of time.
There are some like Emma Seligman is somebody who I feel like is on a more traditional trajectory. She made a super small movie with a friend, then she made a slightly bigger movie for a studio. It didn't perform maybe as well as they wanted it to, but she's somebody who, like, in theory, could keep building at the right scale.
Right, but that's a scale. That's a different scale because all the things I listed, like those first movies were studio movies. Those weren't produced and then acquired. Somebody let Wes make Bottle Rocket at Columbia. That someone was James L. Brooks.
Right.
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
And then within 2 years, it was like, what's your next dream? Forget about the disaster.
Yeah.
And this just doesn't happen anymore. And that was the thing that made all of our heroes.
Yeah.
Everyone we love from our lifetime.
There was a loose change division in studio filmmaking that doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah. And there's just too much money at stake to be like, go make Rushmore for $10 million or like, go make this for like a little bit of money. Oh, Oscar nomination? Like, now what do you want to do? And as I always like to complain, she's a great example. I'm a great example. Like, Listen Up Philip, Sundance 2014. If that was 2004, by 2 years later, I would have made a $10 million movie of my complete desire. That just doesn't exist anymore. Like, we just missed the boat on like, let's nurture, let's build up, because it just becomes like, what job do you want to get? And spending 4 years making something as deranged as this is like, look, I can like do my own thing. This is creatively fulfilling, which ultimately is what matters.
Yeah.
It's not financially rewarding at all, but we never made the movie for more than like 7 days at a time. So I didn't really have to miss too much family time.
Right.
Obviously the musical took weeks and weeks, but every day of rehearsals I left in time for dinner because again, I was doing very little. And then I was like, all right, on, it's the week of the show. I will not be home for dinner this week. And that's that. And the week of the Range Life shoot with Joe and the guys, it's like, I will not be home this week. But every week of prep, I was home for pickup, for dinner, because I wasn't working that hard. And that's the inspiration of Malcolmus, is like, I have 1,000 complex ideas that might approach brilliance or insanity. I'm just going to work at them like 70%. And then like when I need to, I'm going to go above and beyond. And for him, that's when he's on stage. And for me, I'm like, all right, this is my week to like actually lock in. And then I'm just going to like give it 50% for another month. And then I'm going to like really lock in again.
Yeah.
And he's
the other
very
50% of the time is sending memes of me.
Yeah. Well, this was pre that, but now my life is much richer because of the meme work. But I don't know. It just feels like that's a big problem. And something like you're saying, what does this lead to? It's like historically big things. Now, like, nothing leads to anything. Like, I left the agent I'd been with since Listen Up Philip was at Sundance, specifically because there's no path into, like, you want to work on a Hollywood movie, you want to work on a studio film. And I was just like, I want to get off this treadmill. I can't do this anymore. Like, this is of no interest. As a writer, yes, that's all I do. As a director, who cares? Like, this is what I want to direct.
Right.
Like, stupid stuff where I'm making films in public with audiences that pay to be in my movie. I want to like break the rules and break the form. I don't want to make like Pablum. And like, nobody wants to do that. Everyone who grew up my age wanted to be all these heroes. And some people get to do that, but I'm just nervous that the system is not going to continue to be even remotely supportive of something that gives anybody the chance, right? Like, just because money's getting harder to unlock. Like, no one's working. No one's making anything.
Yeah.
I have so many friends, producers, 5-6 projects. They can't get anything. They have actors attached. They have locations. They just can't get the money. No one's giving the money. This is unfortunate. And I say to people, oh, what's your advice? Well, who do you want to release your movie? They say, send them the script and see if they want to make it now. I did. They passed on it. Don't make the movie. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but like, you will lose your money. Don't make the movie now. If the company who you want to release it won't make it, they're not going to buy it later, but they could just buy it now. Or if they do, they're going to buy it for a third or a quarter or a fifth of what you spent on it. And that's bad business. And bad business doesn't lead to more business. So like a Sinners, that's an anomaly. We love anomalies. Independent anomalies, it's like, I mean, you do the math, like 2 years of Sundance, like 75 narrative films, documentaries, 100, like 5 sales, 10 sales. Like, people aren't talking about that enough. That's very bad. Not for those movies. That's just bad for business. And like, to have a very strange music film documentary, there's dozens of these, hundreds a year maybe. Premiere, Venice, where of course Amanda has a great time and I had a less great
Yeah,
time.
it's okay.
Just very, very hot and a lot of issues there.
Yeah,
But
logistically, it can be
Yeah.
complicated. Yeah.
but now you know what to do with your kids. And I told you about the camp there.
Yeah. Oh, they're not coming.
Well, there's a camp for them.
Oh,
I
okay.
told you there's a camp.
I know, but you didn't tell me which island.
It's on the Lido.
Oh. I didn't know
You
this.
drop them off, you walk to where the movies are.
Oh,
It's
okay.
literally
Well,
down the street from the
okay.
movies.
All right.
That's very validating to be like, music documentaries don't go there. They don't play at the New York Film Festival. They don't even get released in theaters. We don't get like maybe one screening. And so it's an absurd privilege to have finished this thing exactly as we wanted for half the money we needed.
Yeah.
Despite,
You're really turning the boat around. You were ending this
Yeah.
eabout on a
Yeah,
really
yeah,
down
yeah,
note.
yeah,
So
yeah.
please
Well,
have
'cause now
some
I'm talking about
gratitude for your
good.
greatness.
Well,
Yeah.
talk about the industry negative, talk about myself. I feel very very fortunate because the thing's being released. And
Yeah.
because of the Film Forum in New York, it's an exclusive 8 or 10 week theatrical because Film Forum still requires that. So we get to have screenings like last night and throughout the next couple of weeks throughout the country. And that's a privilege for any movie, but for a music documentary that was made not to be a music documentary, but to be like, this is a film. This is a film created as a film, not as like a piece of promotional content for the brand, for the back catalog, is a real privilege. But, maybe I earned it by having done this for 15 years. Maybe I earned it by riding the coattails of an iconic band. But regardless, this didn't create a sustainable model for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I hope no one's inspired by this movie because it will lead them to, you
just said it's important to be inspired by dumb shit.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah. Well, I hope someone hates it and they get inspired to make something. But yeah, people are like, man, they really just not the Pavement movie I wanted. Or it's like, well, then make your own Pavement movie to the naysayers.
I'm not sure there
Yeah.
will be another Pavement movie after this
Well, no,
movie.
because we put all 5 of them in one.
Yes,
That's right.
you can. You did it all.
Alex, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Thank you for having me. Lovely
Lovely
to
to
see you both as always. And happy to be here for my 6th physical in-person space.
What number are we on though? Is this 9?
Of episodes? Well,
12?
that I'm not prepared to answer.
I'm not either. Anyway, thanks, Alex. Go
Thanks,
see
guys.
Pavements. Thanks to Alex Ross Perry. Thanks to Bobby Wagner. Thanks to our producer, Jack Sanders. We'll be back later this week with the next entry in our 25 for 25 series. Any hints you want to provide?
I'm so excited. I was like, I would say that my excitement is maybe doesn't no, it does correspond.
So you have revisited it.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I did
revisiting
I
it
did
right
it last
after this.
night, and I was just like, "This is." I was just like, "I love us. I love that we're doing this. This makes me so happy." Which is when you guys find out what movie is awesome.
What a great tease. We'll see you then.